What's up, y'all? Alright, so we're trying something different tonight, and I need everybody's help here. I got Rick, SHOCKWAVE on with me, and we're streaming a Discord chat into OBS, and we're going to try and do a chat tonight on just everything going on, see how this works. I've never had anybody on TakeBackSpace before, so just hop in the chat room. Got a little... Yeah, say what's up, Rick. Sorry. Getting this...
Hey everybody, how are we?
So it's just going to be super loose, and we're talking about Sapphire updates, and the Crescent moon, and yesterday's Saturn wave, or Saturn refraction. I want to recoin it. Say what's up, Kimberly, how's it going? And everybody joining. And it'll give us a second for everybody to come through.
Music seems a little high in level, Chris. If
All
you could drop it down slightly.
Sounds good. Yeah, let us know about the levels.
Yeah, you need to increase yours. Mine seems okay with the music.
Yeah, it's pretty fine here. Or let us know in the chat if my volume, Rick's volume, and the music is pretty balanced right now, or who needs to go up or down. What's up, Vicky? How's it going? No effects on the voice tonight, just coming through on this wireless headset. But just right out the gate, starting with this waxing crescent, and you got Mare Crisium at the top right, and that's one of those hexagons that we've been talking about recently. Such simple proof for electrical nature. Rick, now that you're here live and out of the chat room and into the chat, what do you think about Mare Crisium up top right? I'll lower the audio. I'll lower the music.
Well, I think you need to increase your volume. You still seem a little low. If you could pop your decibels up a couple more, that might solve that.
Are you not hearing me? Let's see in the chat room. Because
Well,
I hear myself pretty... Or are you hearing on the...
I'm listening to the live stream as well on my computer. I have it turned down right now as I'm talking, but when I'm not talking, I have it the volume up, and I'm comparable with the music, but you're a little low. Forgive us, folks. We're just doing a test to make sure we get the right levels.
All right, let's see.
Previously, the music was in sync with my voice. It was you could hear my voice through the music, no problem. But you were a little difficult to.
Yo.
So you just needed to increase your volume. Sorry.
What about now? I got like 4.4 up on the dB. Is that loud enough? I'll let that come through. What's up, Dapple Ben? How's it going? Actually, Ben is saying that you're a little bit loud, Rick. The Rick is loud. Man, it's already super hot. I feel like I just went up 2 dB, so let me know if this is too loud for y'all. And thanks for bearing with us while we try this. Check out the comments, Rick, and I'm gonna keep an eye on the scope for a second. Let's also take a quick look at the dark side of the moon. Here, I'm gonna try and talk. Ooh, sorry guys. I feel like it's a little bit better now. Alright. What's going on, Miguel? I just feel like I'm breathing into the mic, so let me know if it's too much of that.
Well, there's a large delay, so I was waiting till I heard the point where you either turned yourself up. It didn't work. maybe just turn me down and keep the music where it is. People might have to turn up their volume slightly, but as long as you don't crank the volume up on the music too much, it shouldn't blow their eardrums out when you switch to music. That's our concern, folks. We don't want to damage anybody's eardrums or speakers.
I think it's fine. Let's just go for it. And if it's too weird and people can't hear stuff, they'll ask us. So
there we go.
Thanks everybody for hanging out. All right, what is it? 8:43. Cooking in the southeast. What's up, Ellie Wynn? Nice to see you. And I was so nervous about the clouds. I got a few rolling in right now, but I'm gonna stream as long as I can. I'm just testing this out.
Now that we may have got the sound volumes thing sorted out, you were asking me about that crater.
Yeah, Mare Crisium up at the top right.
Looks hexagon. It looks hexagonal. I mean, is it at the very top right, or the one that's a third of the way down?
I'm gonna.
Yeah, point it out.
I'm gonna point it out. We'll actually zoom in on it. That's going to be a little bit of a lag for me, I think, visually for you, Rick. But here we go.
It'd be about 10 seconds.
Yeah. So dead center on the screen, Mare Crisium, and you can see very clearly at the top the sharp edges and the corners.
Well, that large crater that's about a third of the way down, that's obviously a hexagon.
Yeah, let me know if you're seeing this. I'm also pulling up the Moon Atlas. Tell you how large this is. So
that's the crate.
Yeah, 620 by 570 kilometers. And you can really see the formation on this. You got the little curly mustache, and to the right of that you got two little craterlets called Pierce and Picard.
Right, and when I was growing up, just as a little side note, when I was growing up, I was told, and everybody on the planet was told, that impacts make round craters. Completely round craters. There is no way that it could be a hexagon or a square or any other shape than round, even if it comes in at an oblique angle. An oblique angle means a steep angle. Say it's coming in at the top of the moon, at the very top of the pole, and it hits the top of the pole, and it's coming in sideways to the pole of the moon, hits the moon. It's supposed to create a round crater, but no, we don't see that. We see these circular craters and even hexagonal and octagonal craters up there as well. And these are electrical thunderbolts of the gods touching the surface of the moon at 90-degree angles, coming down 90. And this is how electricity arcs. It arcs at a 90-degree angle to any surface that it wants to connect with.
Yeah, you can see clear visual evidence of that if you see like one of those little plasma balls that you can buy, those toys. But you can also see it in the Sapphire video today on the Thunderbolts project site, or YouTube channel rather. So Rick, you want to link to that actually, if you don't mind? Drop that in the chat.
Yeah, sure, I can drop a link to Sapphire for sure. We'll get into Sapphire in a few moments, but it's what we're about to tell you folks is just phenomenal. This is groundbreaking and ground shaking and ground changing.
What's going on, Sensei Camilo? How's it going? Thanks for all the nice comments, everybody, and the thumbs and the views on the Saturn Wave video. But I want to really start calling it the Saturn Refraction video, because it's really ultimately reminding me of, you know, putting a spoon in a glass of water, and it kind of shifts what we see as the spoon, the image of the spoon. And this could be due to a plasma layer. And why I'm talking about Sapphire is because they show these layers and you can see them in a laboratory, and then you can apply kind of the visual corroboration with what we see in terms of the Saturn wave or Saturn refraction with these plasma layers, and potentially interaction between the moon plasma layers and Earth, or maybe just the Earth, like Rick will talk about it, but he thinks like it's a Birkeland current, which definitely could be. So I'll lower this a little bit.
Well, speaking to that, I think it's our earlier conversations. You know, we were talking about it maybe being a Birkeland current out in space that's passing by, but I'm leaning more towards a dark glow mode double layer that surrounds the Earth that, you know, we just don't see that often, and we only see it in hi Miguel, we only see it in certain instances when we're looking at these objects in space, because they don't pass through it all the time. It's not an everyday occurrence that they're in the right position, that they pass through these things.
You actually made a good point, I thought, about the fact that people are viewing it, or we're seeing these particular phenomena at a particular angle in the sky, right? So it's not something that's so common that you can just point it anywhere and capture it, right? Maybe it's along a certain type of axis, or maybe it's closer to the horizon in certain areas. Maybe it moves in ways that don't really, we don't know yet. Exactly.
Or perhaps it only happens when a certain energy level is increased. It's kind of like a pulse, energy transferring from one double layer to another, like a breakdown of the double layer.
Yeah. Let's see who's showed up. What's up, Miguel? And Cognitive Dissonance, what's going on? Who else? Morgello, how's it going? Ellie says, what time did it happen? So if you check the video, I have the timestamp in the bottom left corner exactly, but I think it's like, what was it? 12.
It's around 12:30 or 12:40, something.
12:40. So you can punch that into Stellarium or some star program and see exactly where Saturn was when that happened. Alright, so checking out the dark side of the moon here. Not to be confused with the far side of the moon, where the Chinese rover is taking photos right now. Photos that I would love to see. Was that an airplane? That was cool. What's going on? The Plain Truth. That was an airplane, I think, right? Sensei Camilo says, whoa, what was that? I'm pretty sure. Saw some red lights passing through. Kimberly says, hello, upside down name. What's up, Pierrot? Pepe Vassal. Yo, yo. So we're trying something new tonight. I've never had a guest on TakeBackSpace before, but SHOCKWAVE from the chat and from the Electric View and from Earth decided to hang out with me tonight, talk about plasma and all sorts of stuff. Please ask questions, and floor is open, really. So this is fascinating.
Yes, the universe is electric. Go ahead.
Thank you. Oh no, I was just saying, like, this effect of seeing Earth shine, right? Seeing the dark side of the moon here is really an amazing phenomenon to exist and be able to see it. And then two, just like, how are we able to see this with these cameras and be able to gather enough light to really see this portion of the moon that, you know, our ancestors saw, but not in this detail. I mean, you can really make out all the geography. So I love to admire it, and every time we see it, it's just a little bit different. And when it's this clear, you can see the top right corner. At the very top, at the 11 o'clock position, is Aristarchus. Even through the darkness, you can see how bright it really is with that kind of electrostatic effect. What do you think about the transient electric phenomenon, like the glowing little bits on the moon? Maybe talk a little bit about that, and I'll have a smoke.
Well, we see these these events happening not only on the moon, but if you have gone to the Thunderbolts project and you've watched a lot of videos that deal with cometary probes that NASA has been sending since 2000-ish, they see these jets coming off of material coming off the surface of the comets, and they see these bright white areas on the surface of the comet, and it seems like they say that, you know, the sunlight's hitting it and it's warming it up, and it's, you know, releasing water into the depths of space, and it trails behind them in a tail. Well, what they don't tell you is most of that water is deuterium water. Very little of that water is regular drinking water, H2O, that you and I know. Most of it is deuterium, which is heavy water, which is one hydrogen atom and 2 deuterium atoms instead of oxygen atoms.
Thanks for explaining that. I was going to ask you to, but you got it.
Yeah, it's a different water. It's more, and this water is created when the solar wind slams into the face of this comet, which is, the solar wind is basically electric in nature, and it's etching the band, the center of the comet. It starts etching the center area of the comet until it looks like a dumbbell or a barbell, and then after a while it splits into 2 pieces once the etching just basically destroys that whole center part of the comet, and now it's 2 way smaller pieces floating through. And this is what's been happening for thousands of years, ever since these comets were originated from Venus, in these awesome events that happened in the skies during the polar configuration years, long before we were born.
Yeah, man. I love it. I'm just honestly admiring the view and listening to you talk and just reading some comments. How's everybody doing in the chat room? How's the weather? You seeing this for yourselves? You got Jupiter. Yeah, actually you got to your left, if you're looking south, you got Saturn, and then Jupiter to your right hand, and then the moon should be setting to your west if you're on the East Coast. So I'm gonna keep rolling here for a little bit.
I'm sorry, Chris. Didn't mean to interrupt you, but the darkness that Chris speaks of, it's not actually the dark side of the moon. It's just the lit side of the moon that has a shadow of the Earth on it at the moment. That, as you know, waxes and wanes and becomes a full moon, but we still see light being transposed on that surface. That's why we still see the features in this shot. And the light that is refracted around the Earth is probably the cause of this.
Oh, I hear that. I think, damn, I got totally distracted. But oh yeah.
Well, no, because we know that the surface of the moon is highly reflective. I mean, it's it's one of the best reflectors that we know of.
I just mean I use the term dark side in order to actually change the terminology and the understanding of the dark side.
I would refer to it as the shadow side, the shadow portion of the lit side.
You know what I'm saying?
It just confuses people, yeah.
I actually think, yeah, like, well, the whole thing with the Pink Floyd thing is that the dark side is now considered the far side. So when I say the dark side, and I tell people like, hey, this is actually the dark side.
See, I'm new to your channel, so I don't know this. So thank you for correcting me. I will go sit in my corner with my thumbs cap on.
Oh, please. No. It's not like that at all. It's just more like, you know, a big part of the channel is talking about language and talking about how we use terms to define things and redefine things and reify things.
And part of having a really good conversation is also having a very thick skin. and not taking offense at anything anybody says. Really, truly.
Absolutely.
That's the way to...
What's going on in the chat room? What's up, Rockstar? Nice to see you. What's going on, Mary? Sorry, I've been trying not to breathe into the microphone because I'm like, it's so damn hot. I'm gonna sound like a dog, and yeah. So I can talk a little bit louder so I don't blow anybody's mic out. But Mary, nice to see you, and nice to see everybody. We got a filled up room right here, and I was explaining to Rick just why I call the dark side of the moon the shadow portion of the moon, or the earth shine portion of the moon, the dark side, is simply because, you know, culturally, I want people to understand that there is another side of the moon that we don't see, and that the scientific term for that is actually the far side. So I think I was just kind of in my own element when I do that, but I hear you. You can call it a lot of different things, actually, and I think people will understand. I'm too low, says Vicky. I can't tell. Right now I feel like I'm pretty loud in my headphones.
Well, you're in your headphones, you are loud, but on the broadcast, you are low. So if you cranked it up a couple more dB, that might bring you up a little bit to the...
Yeah, let's try it one more time. That was not right. All right. Let's see. Perhaps that's a little better. That's so much louder, Jesus Christ. Shit. Let's just see if this is better. I turned it up like 8 dB. I'll put a sock on the microphone. That's a great idea. Thank you. I know it's like such a mess. Such a damn mess.
How is his volume level now, folks, compared to mine?
Is this better? Let's see if this is better. Testing volume.
Testing volume.
That sock thing is not going to work.
No, now that you've increased the sensitivity, you might want to just move the mic away from...
I did, yeah. What's up, Cosmic Lettuce? Let us see. Alright, I'm going to switch back to the normal
Wild
view.
says perfect, Chris.
Oh man, that was a little while ago. But I think I can just speak louder.
No, you said it now again.
Oh yeah. Alright. That must work a little bit. So the moon is setting.
Plain Truth says better. Sorry, yeah.
Cool. Sorry, I'm kneeling next to the scope. So just checking where the moon is at. It's about to go behind the trees. And so I'm going to stick on it for a little bit longer. I kind of wanted to check out some details, but we got stuck on this dark side thing, far side thing, and I got distracted. So all good. This is a fun, exciting adventure into having somebody on the show. So I appreciate it, Rick. Thanks for also being here and bearing with me.
Well, thanks for having me.
Damn. Okay, so let's see, where can we zoom into? Maybe northern region. Man, I gotta say, Saturn and Jupiter look amazing. Freaking amazing right now. You see that little glitch? Watch what happens on the screen right now when I switch from recording to non-recording, and you'll see what kind of like camera glitches really look like, as just compared to the idea of having the lunar wave, or the Saturn wave or Jupiter wave be a camera glitch. Alright, let's zoom in here and check out some little Galaga. It's not a spacecraft, but it looks so cool. I want to just double check the name of this crater. What's going on, Carolina Sky Astronomy? Great shots lately. I went and checked out your Saturn and Jupes. Nice work. What's going on, Josh Carrera? How you doing? Alright, so this crater right dead center is called Patavius. And Rotsley to the left of it. And Palisch to the right. Palisch. The kind of flat one to the left is Snellius. And Stevinus. It's getting a bit hazy. About to go behind the palm trees, so we're going to get a lot of diffraction. But you can see to the right of Patavius. Let's see. What is that? That's Balmer. Yeah, Balmer and Ansgarius. Man, I feel like I've never said those names before, but whatever, it's first.
Well, it's kind of like Eyepieces.
I finally got it, though. So much pressure.
I don't want to say the name of the planet that I keep screwing up.
Uranus.
Well, I'm a Canadian, so I'm allowed to screw up.
All right, you're forgiven. What's going on in the chat room? Let's see. What's up, Tom? The sock didn't work. It was giving a lot of static, and I thought that was much more annoying. I feel like whatever. I'll take a listen to this and figure out everything after this show. For now, let's just roll with it. Seems like it's fine. I've heard much worse shows.
I would like to mention to you, Chris, that if you're going to put up some music as an interlude, warn the people just to make sure that they have their fingers on the volume buttons.
Yeah, let's try that.
Just in case it's a little loud. Yeah. Testing music coming up. Have your fingers.
Stream dropped out for a second. Is that same shit that's happening? OBS drops out. I'll be right back. You can still hear me though, right? The internet.
Oh yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
Through Discord, nope.
Yeah, OBS is like, nope. Stream complete.
Not today, maybe tomorrow.
Damn, sneeze.
Well, you got 22 watching so far.
Yeah, it's coming back on. It says green, but let's see.
They might have to refresh.
Yeah.
I'm refreshing now, see what happens.
It's still not back for me, but I can. But OBS
yeah,
says
stream
green.
offline.
I don't know. Are we talking too much shit? Let's see.
There we go. It's coming back.
Okay.
There we go. You're live again, Chris.
Nope. That cut again. Shit. Oh, there we go. Okay.
Yeah, you're good. Testing. Everybody hears us fine?
Hey, cool. Alright. That should be better. I don't understand this lately. It's just like every stream OBS will cut once or twice, no matter how close I am to the Wi-Fi. But anyway, thanks everybody. Or we lost half the peeps, so total Thanos moment.
Well, they'll come back.
Just kidding. Alright, so moon is fading, and we'll move over to Jupiter in a second. Just getting this last shot here. It's going to be pretty. Nice and glowy.
Jimbo Khan, the Saturn wave is that same lunar wave that people have been catching since 2015. Now that people are starting to buy better telescopes and better cameras, and more of them are starting to be trained on the surface of the moon. I think in the future we're going to start seeing more and more of these lunar waves, and also waves coming across the face of planets, like Jupiter and Saturn last night, which was absolutely phenomenal. Just wow.
Yeah, Jimbo, welcome to the channel. Please feel free to ask questions. Check the description of the video for links, gear, music, and really no questions off the table. We're talking about all these different ideas and coming at it mostly from a electric universe perspective, but all ideas are welcome. So just checking out the moon, the waxing crescent moon from South Florida, and it's setting right now. And then we'll go over and check Jupiter and Saturn and hang out for a bit, listen to some tunes, and talk to my buddy Rick over here, who's been very gracious to hang out. One also to invite me to the Electric View, and it's a good time to shout out a bunch of good channels in the description. See the Pattern, Electric Universe Eyes, Greg J, Kronos, Thunderbolts Project, Suspicious Observers, Sky Scholar, and a bunch more. Halton ARP. If you've never looked up Halton ARP, do your face a favor, do your ears a favor. So, yeah.
Take back your mind.
Open
and do yourself a favor and really dive into the electric universe. The Thunderbolts Project on YouTube, folks. This is where you're going to get the best truths of our history and our science that we can come across these days. I mean, it's phenomenal the work that these people have been doing. They're scientists that cross the hallway and knock on the other scientist's door to talk to them about what they're looking at and what their field of purview is, and they're finding that some of these equations that are supposed to be exclusive to one branch of science are working well in other branches of science, and that can only happen if the electric is added into the mix, and these equations are based on electrical interactions, and they're seeing it happen on all kinds of different aspects of science, especially in biology.
Yeah, like, it's very important, and we can see these different maps of the magnetic layers over Earth. Even when you're watching just regular news weather, they show you these kind of swirling magnetic currents. These things basically are recursive geometry in terms of optics and what we see in the universe, and also, in my opinion, the way we also perceive consciousness too, in this geometric shape, recursive geometric shapes. So that's how we see hexagons and swirls on, the poles of Saturn, but also in rivers and lakes, and also probably in our bloodstream. And it's completely recursive fractally. And I catch myself trying not to breathe out into the mic. But
well, as I was telling Chris earlier, that these swirls that he's talking about, these cloud formations on Saturn and Jupiter that we see, storms that are circling, these are implosive forces. They work opposite to the gravitational / mass story, which the only thing that they have really in their toolbox are explosive events. When we see the spiral pattern in nature and in plants and in flowers, and as they grow, they unspiral, and especially ferns. You look at a fern, how a fern grows. It has that golden ratio mean to it, and that's the implosive forces that they don't talk about, because they know it will lead to breakthroughs in science and technology that they don't want us to have at the moment.
So that comes up a lot, but speaking of a positive way to look at our situation in terms of energy and science secrets, is that Sapphire video update today is one of those things that we can look to in terms of people like us who are, or more advanced, I think, in their fields, are really doing experiments in the lab and putting out videos showing the results and talking about them. So the Sapphire project is an experiment to kind of figure out how to create a sun object in a laboratory situation, have a controlled environment around that. There's a lot of detail. I mean, we can go into it a little bit, but I feel like this is the last video that Thunderbolts project put out was really high level quality in terms of content, in terms of ideas, in terms of presentation, and that's the type of stuff that we really need to use in terms of talking about these concepts. It's really about compelling information. And so there's so many aspects of it to talk about, but I'm going to share the link with everybody. And also, yeah, Simon Steeps, what's going on? Jimbo Khan says, so that really is a storm on Saturn. Can you see that with your equipment? I thought it was NASA CGI. So I can confirm that you can see that, but it does take a high power telescope like an 11 or 14 inch in perfect skies with stacking. We can look at Saturn momentarily, and we're not going to see it exactly, but you will see some amazing stuff. I can guarantee that. So let's see, the name of the channel, I'm going to pop it in as a link. Give me a moment.
Just so that everybody knows, the best images that we have of Saturn were taken by Cassini. You're going to have to go to the NASA website and go seek those images out. They are absolutely phenomenal. And you can see the detail in high resolution.
Further than that, if you want to see the best, like an amateur astronomer can do with, let's say, a 3-foot scope, you got to check out Damian Peach. So Damian Peach is one of the best independent amateur astronomers, and he's been taking pictures of Saturn and Jupiter for about 20 years. And I'm going to drop the link in here too after Thunderbolts project. How crazy is that, Tom? You see that wave or that refraction? Takes me a second. Sorry if I'm missing any comments, y'all. Ask me again if I miss it. I'm just letting this moon set, and then we're gonna hit up Jupiter. But I want to drop Damian Peach's link in here. It's obviously not Cassini, but it's pretty incredible for Earth-based. And you can certainly see the hexagon. Alright, so those are a couple of links, and I know I quickly was talking about Sapphire project, but there's so many aspects of it. We'll continue to talk about it, but I would definitely recommend sharing that video, watching that video, absorbing it, and seeing what science looks like when the scientists don't treat you like an idiot, and when they actually show you their laboratory experiments, and when they can admit mistakes, even though they are even though they have an ego, they value truth and creating, I don't know, means for the future by transparency in science over their ego. And you watch this thing and you're like, man, this is how things should be. So that's how I took it. I'm going to watch it a bunch more times. But there are a lot of different instances in this video where you see hexagons, you see organization of matter based on magnetic fields, you see interaction between plasma layers, you see geometry organized in ways that are not forced. You can see any number of different symmetrical recursive fractal patterns that we're made of, that are tiny little that are inside us are made of, and then the huge like cosmic jets and quasars and galaxies are probably made in the same fashion, same geometry, just on a much larger scale with different parameters. And it implies so many things. So
I'm sorry, I'm back.
No, it's all good. I'm just talking. I'm about to
my
move
headphones. Sorry, my headphones went out of power.
It's a little cloudy. I think it's going to get cloudier, but but I know, it's looking amazing. I can't complain. I dare not say a thing. Thank you, Kimberly.
Yeah, don't jinx it.
I'm not saying it, not a thing. But I have faith, you know, especially last night, the kind of odds of capturing something like that. It's pretty remarkable. So I don't take it lightly. Alright. Let me switch this track up.
Yep, just like you said last night, you had a feeling.
I'm telling you, I was tired and I was like, I don't know, should I really go live? And then, that we happened to not be searching for Pluto still. I mean, think about it. The setup, that I rewatched the live stream a bunch, and I timestamped it in there if anybody wants to see my silly reaction. But it was pretty funny. It was like, no fucking way. Left of my eye, I was like, is that a wave on Saturn? What? And then I looked. So, pretty funny. All right, y'all. Now I'm gonna stay with the moon while we have it. It's pretty lucky. You know what I mean? It's almost gone. Let me know in the chat. Rick, what do you think? Should we stay with the moon or hit up Jupiter and see what's going on?
Sorry, my wife came in to say goodnight and give me a kiss, but what was the question?
It was really not as important. Oh, Kimberly, I'm ripping you off by not playing. Well, I promise, at this full moon, in whatever, 10 days, I shall play new songs and live guitar. So that's a promise.
Nice.
I can promise that, yeah.
I like.
Ron Hageberg, hello, how's it going? Welcome. Let's see. All right.
Wait, what, Timothy? Was there a UFO last night?
No UFO last night, just the Saturn kind of what I called a wave, but also I want to change and call it a diffraction. Refraction.
Carolina and a couple of Simon is asking to go see Jupiter. So I think they've had enough of.
All right, let's do it. I guess people are tired of the moon. I was wrong. All right, bye moon.
Ask and ye shall receive.
Isn't that how it is? Okay. I gotta say, these wireless headphones, a little crappy, but much better than being tethered I'm telling y'all, it is so gorgeous. I can't even. Alright, here's some jupes coming up. Hello, jupes. It's so cool having you on, and now you can see your home. And I think we could probably even take a shot of Nebula, right? Man, it's crazy.
Oh yeah.
Alright, what's going on
the old
here?
Birthing places of stars.
Damn, are 2 moons in front or behind? That's crazy. Let's zoom in. Vicky says, never tired of the Luna. Me neither. But it's pretty enticing to go over to Saturn and Jupiter right now, being that clear. Jupiter looking like it's got a dual moon tail. Yeah, let's see. Anything else?
Well, a little fun fact about the moon, folks. Its ancient name was Sin. Oops.
Explain more. Oh, check it out. Let me lower this a little bit. So,
explaining more about the moon being named Sin. Well,
yes.
I don't know much about that. I don't know much about the background of it, but I do know it was called Sin in ancient times. And I think for the reason, I mean, this is just speculation on my part, when it came into the influence of our planet,
right,
it caused major problems, just like in any other body would. But we captured, apparently, the Earth captured the moon at 2300 BC, and
that's really
none of the other planets were captured by the Earth. So maybe they looked at it a little differently and gave it that moniker of Sin. And sin back in the day, I don't think it had the same meaning that it has today. Like the apocalypse in the Bible, everybody thinks that it means death, destruction, atomic weapons being flown around and dropped on people. No, no. If you look at the Greek translation of the apocalypse, it just means unveiling of information that was previously hidden.
Right.
That's all it is. Armageddon is just a camp at the bottom of a hill in Greek. It's not anything nasty or anything like that.
So you're saying people misinterpret history?
Well, the meanings of words get twisted over time. They mean one thing, and sometimes they invert the meaning.
All right,
over time.
Do you mind if I interrupt you for 1 second? So we're looking at Jupiter here, and I'm tripping out a little bit because I'm trying to find all the moons, right?
Well, I see one of the moons just on the edge of Jupiter.
Correct. So that is Callisto. Let's see what's going on in the chat. Yeah. Yeah, I'll talk about the Great Conjunction actually next year. That's happening next year, which is Saturn and Jupiter basically being in this frame. You'd be able to get Saturn and Jupiter together, which is pretty remarkable. But anyway, I'm looking for the.
I can't wait. Oh, I can't wait.
That was intense.
I intended it to be.
Oh my God, Blair Witch style. All right, so Callisto. This is my deal. Like maybe I'm missing something, but Callisto, and then to the left of that is Io, and then to the left of that is Ganymede. But where the heck is Europa? And like, it doesn't even the label's not showing up at all. Actually, let me just punch it into the search because that's just strange. Either way, super cool configuration. Let's check out and see if Europa just vanished. Wow. Damn. Okay, so this is a really interesting thing, which is rare. So Europa is orbiting so far away that we can't see it, which is crazy, right? Does that make sense? Rick, what do you think? I guess maybe Rick is not there for a second, but I think it's pretty interesting.
No, I'm here. I just have a mouthful of chocolate bar. I didn't want to speak with
Priorities. So, isn't that interesting?
Well,
so Europa is basically to the left.
Would it be if you pull? Would you pull out and see if you could see it?
I mean, these are the settings blasted out. You would see it if there's any light coming through, right? Look, let's see. It should be basically to the left of Jupiter. It's between, so Callisto is on the rim, and then it is, let me just see that again, Io and Ganymede. So Io's, so between Io and Jupiter, Europa is just hanging out, and it's dark, which is nuts.
Interesting.
I guess I've seen it once before. I think I had this experience. I was like, deja vu. I was like, I've felt this. So I guess it's not very common, but it does happen. Astronomers in the chat, or astro imagers, let me know if you've seen Jupiter with only 3 moons visible. Of course, it's 3 or 4 out of 70 odd. Let's see the surface of Jupiter. Mind stabilized. Also chocolate sounds.
I do see a small little speck just below the far left moon.
Alright, check this out. So we got the Great Red Storm, and I think it's clear enough that I'm going to add the 3x. Get a bit closer.
Well, see, the chocolate in Canada is different than the chocolate in the United States.
Oh, I'm sure.
So if I named off well, we do have some similar bars, or some same bars, but most of our bars are different than what the United States is used to. Hey, do you guys have coffee crisp down there?
No, but that sounds awesome. Right now, anything sweet sounds really awesome.
I know you guys got Mars bars.
Yeah, once in a while. I gotta say, now if I crave sugar, I'll have like blackberries or pineapple. Florida has great citrus and peach.
Well, I did go to high school in Rochester, New York, by the way,
yeah.
for quite a few months, and I do remember almond joys and mounds.
I just remember the childhood stuff. There was Bounty. There was Curly Whirly. You ever had a Curly Whirly? Or
well, we have Bounty up here.
Have you ever heard of whatchamacallit? I know they still have them, but
oh yeah,
I remember that was a candy bar that came into being when I was a kid.
Yeah, it was. If I remember correctly, it was just the caramel and chocolate.
It just had those Rice Krispies. I was always a sucker for Rice Krispies. Alright, so 3x, check it out.
Oh, okay.
Here we go, some jupes. Man, that is nice. And you can see Callisto to the bottom left, 8 o'clock position. What's going on, Mark Rowe? Let me know if I missed anybody who just joined. I've been messing with the scope mostly. hanging out here with the first guest ever on TakeBackSpace, Rick SHOCKWAVE, who's been hanging out with us for a few weeks and invited me hang out with the Electric View folks. And so getting a guest on here was interesting. And so we'll get to talk about some ideas and throw it around. We've already talked about some hexagons and the moon. The moon is already set, but we're back at Jupiter. And maybe, Rick, you want to talk about the Great Red Spot and maybe some really basic information on it, you know? If you'd like.
Well, yeah, sure. As far as we know, we think it's fairly new phenomena because over time it's been getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and at some point it's going to disappear.
What do you think time-wise?
Well, I would think probably another 1,000 years before it disappears or gets close to disappearing.
Yeah.
Well, apparently all of this craziness happened, 3 to 4 or 5,000 years ago. The breakup of the polar configuration caused by Jupiter, and we think that at that point Jupiter birthed, we don't know what, perhaps Titan, perhaps even our moon, and spat it out, and because it wasn't locked into a polar configuration already like Mars, Earth, and Saturn, it left the influence of Jupiter and flew somewhere and did something that we don't know exactly what came out of it. Like I say, it could be Titan that was spat out of Jupiter and Saturn captured it, or it could be our moon and we captured it, our moon. We just don't know.
Let's back up and talk about like what is spitting it out, you know? Because I hear a lot of theories and my mind immediately goes to the, like, what does that really mean? You know, the granular idea of, let's say we have, maybe we have to approach it as like, what is a planet? You know, how does a planet form? And how would a planet actually birth another planet or an asteroid or a comet? Is it pinches along, fractal Birkeland filaments within the planetary structure after it's been birthed of its own on filamentary currents? So
the way Wallace Thornhill described Saturn birthing Venus is, it was a star. It was a brown dwarf star, and we think that all it would take for Saturn or Jupiter, in fact, to become a brown dwarf star, is just to move them outside of the heliosphere of this sun's influence. Immediately they would come to life as a brown dwarf star. The nature of the interior of these bodies isn't known. The NASA scientists like to say that Saturn would float in a tub of water. It's so light. We just don't know. And as for birthing a planet from another planet, you have to imagine the sizes of these things. They're absolutely massive, and you could fit many, many Earths inside of Jupiter and Saturn, by the way. So if it comes into an environment where it becomes electrically unstable, to be able to stabilize itself in that environment, it must shed material, like we see explosions out in deep space, with the Hubble telescope. That is just a star that has become unstable in its environment, and it shed its outer layer of matter that it's been creating since it first came to life.
So Vicky mentions in the chat something that actually doesn't seem too far off. as maybe a counter argument or an addition, which is it will disappear all at once much sooner than 1,000 years, in reference to the Great Red Storm, which I don't think that's too wild of a speculation, actually. Wild Vicky. But I didn't even mean that. Fucking puns. But what do you think of that, Rick? Could it be? Could it happen much faster?
It's possible. I mean, we've taken decent observations of Jupiter for what, 600 years or 400 years now, ever since Kepler, and we've seen in the last 100 years the size of the spot diminish quite a bit. Not a whole lot. I mean, you could fit the Earth inside that red spot easily, no problem.
Yeah. So, DJ, what's going on? Says, how could you possibly know all this? And I don't know what that acronym is, but WAG. The idea is that we're just talking. It's stuff that I've researched and Rick has researched in different ways, but it's really a lot about Immanuel Velikovsky, Thunderbolts Project, plasma cosmology, different ideas that each of us have, and a mix of a lot of things, and just talking about alternative ideas when it comes to space and physics and astronomy, etc. So we don't know, well, I don't claim to know anything except really what I can verify and record and stream to y'all in real time. This is why I do this thing, and or one of the reasons. And the other is really for my own verification, so I can tell people things that are more correct because I have verifiable, observable scientific evidence of it. And I think science would do much better to have more of that versus a lot more speculation and ad hoc theorem. So that's what's going on. 400 years, say like Kepler, around 1600, and probably before that you had other people building telescopes. So at least the last 1,000 years we've had eyes on the sky to some degree, right?
Oh, most definitely. I heard a rumor that Kepler copied
Mark Rowe, peace out. Sorry.
Yep. Mark, hi, how are you?
No, he's peacing out. I'll take it easy, Mark. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Rick.
No, I'm just saying that I heard stories that Kepler didn't invent his telescope. He just copied it from something that was in the Middle East already. So we may have had telescopic optics looking at the stars maybe for another 600 years on top of that 400 years, perhaps even longer. We just don't know, because those texts were destroyed in the fire of the Library of Alexandria and other places.
That's a great point.
That these texts were completely destroyed because of wars, bands of ravaging nut bars going through and just burning everything that they could find. It's just, I don't know. Humanity has been in this state of PTSD and state of what's the word I'm looking for? It's a
amnesia?
Medical term. No, amnesia, yes, but it's more psychological
cognitive
condition.
Dissonance.
Well, that too.
The guessing game. I'm going to Saturn, by the way. So let's get in here.
Anyways, but
no, I hear you.
We're messed up. Our brains are messed up because of these things that happened to the Earth that basically did major damage, wiped out many megafauna species, and our forefathers witnessed it, and it's carried into our genes.
Explain the mythological tie-in. Why it's such a when you watch Electric Universe, when you see the symbols, it's like undeniable, basically, right? It seems like the most simple answer to where all cultures had these symbols and saw the same thing. That's sort of my thought. Yeah.
Right. Well, you see, if you look at the, for instance, if you look at the winged disc of Egypt,
yeah,
right, you'll see the same thing in Sumeria, which isn't that far away, by the way, right? It's fairly close. But
well, those shapes are
if you
like
look to
magnetic,
the other side of, well, if you look to the other side of the planet, you see the South Americans, they have a winged disc as well.
Totally.
So how could one culture on the other side of the planet have the same symbology? And it's not just the winged disc. We see with a little bit of artist's flair, we see the same symbols just portrayed slightly differently. Like the Maya, for instance, their symbol for Venus is more square-like than circular, and a star, like a star pattern,
right.
spreading out from the center dot in the center, which is Mars. The outer circle is Saturn, the star or the flowing rivers or whatever you want to call it, because they called them the four winds, the four rivers. They called it many different things, but it all harkens back to Saturn being behind everything. Then after the birth of Venus, Venus being there, and then Mars sitting in front. And once Venus was birthed, it started an oscillation between the planets, pushing Mars towards Earth and causing a number of devastating events. 12 times Mars was said to approach the Earth. Yeah. And Mars was a little dot in the sky, and then as it approached, you could see it becoming more and more bigger, and it's referred to as a giant sometimes. Well, we see Mars as this little dot in our telescopes now. How can it be a giant? That's got to be crazy stories.
Okay,
well,
so
our myths are history.
Yeah, let me pause you there for a sec. So that's one of those things I feel that people tend to have difficulty with, because it means that planets move quickly and then they reshuffle and set into different orbits. And we've come up with a cosmology and a history that basically says that nothing's happened for billions of years. And we
4.5 billion years into being fact, yeah.
Yeah, so we live in a Goldilocks zone with this cosmological constant that keeps us alive, and we're somehow existing. Now, while it's not a whole, excuse me, it's not one of these things where I can't entertain that thought, but at the same time, it also feels like that doesn't make perfect sense in terms of, man, totally fucking lost it.
In terms of the mathematical, it doesn't even make sense, and they're starting to see that.
Thank you.
They're starting to see that what one of the big problems is the water on Earth compared to the water on Saturn. If the water came to Earth like their story says 2 billion years ago during the late heavy bombardment, when the comets were very active apparently, right, and delivered all the water to the Earth, how is it that the water in the rings around Saturn are chemically identical to the water on Earth? Not only that, the water on Jupiter and other planets and other moons is not identical to that on Earth and Saturn. That's a big question that needs to be answered, and the only answer is Saturn delivered the water to the Earth like they said in the Bible. The heavens opened up and the ground opened up, and more water was delivered to the Earth during the flood. That explains a lot. If it is in fact true that Saturn was in a polar configuration with us, Mars, and Venus at one point.
Right.
That's the only thing that can explain that. That there was an electrical connection between Saturn, Venus, Earth, and Mars, and in that electrical connection itself were water molecules. Hydrogen and oxygen combined in like a mist in an electrical condition where it was not frozen, it was warm and heated up because of this electrical glow connection.
So I think you're jumping into a lot of different things that let's unpack a few of them, because even for me, like, I still want to stall and talk about them. So let's just check on the channel and see what's going on in the chat room.
I'm sorry I'm going a little fast for everybody probably, but
I love it, but like it would be cool to unpack, like, I think the connection between symbols, where you were talking about symbols being found around the world, and the fact that you had people like David Talbot and you had Velikovsky writing and aggregating information the same way people do research today, pulling together all the symbols and the cave drawings and the works that we could find. Because yes, there are tons of things that were lost in the burning of the libraries and the museums in various wars. I'd recommend looking up like the list of all lost libraries in wars. It's pretty devastating.
It's pretty intense.
It's pretty intense, and it's pretty consistent, and it happens like it just happened 15, 20 years ago in Iraq, you know? So it sucks, but what it really says is that we do have reference. So our mythos is really a lot more like history. So when Rick was just talking about how the Bible actually said something and it was physically accurate, see, people immediately, or at least we live in a culture where people immediately jump to it and like, I guess this channel is now religious for some, or that kind of idea. But really it's just like to entertain all our history and to think about it as like part of a larger story. So if the Bible says something,
religion is part of human history.
Exactly.
Religion is a result, I'm pretty darn sure, of this male and female form that was seen in the sky in our auroras that were supercharged thousands and thousands of times more than they are today. Yep. Creating this squatterman image that we see on the north and south poles of the planet.
Yeah.
On the north,
let's just say hi to Starlight. Starlight, what's going on? Nice to see you.
Hi, Starlight.
Sorry you didn't get the note, but you're here now, and we're still going strong. Please keep going, Rick.
Where was I?
I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
That's how I am too. I'm like, I had an idea. Let's just chill for a second, see the Saturn view, and
oh, home. Yeah. I'm busy looking at the chat and not looking at home. Jesus, what's wrong with me?
The focus is going back and forth, but.
And when I say home, I don't mean that we lived on the planet Saturn. I mean that Saturn was our ancient sun and is responsible for not only birthing humanity and birthing all life on this planet, but growing us up to the point where we could start thinking for ourselves instead of being animalistic in nature. Our brains grew because of these electrical interactions between worlds and the breakup of the polar configuration. I think our minds changed, and there's evidence of this around 1500 BC, that the way we think and the way we looked at ourselves became different around that time.
Let's unpack that for half a sec. So, also, what's up, Black Cherubim and Starlight? Yeah, so Starlight, I'm trying a different format tonight for the first time ever. So SHOCKWAVE, who's been hanging out with us in the stream bunch, his name is Rick, came to hang out with us tonight and chat with me. So I'm funneling our Discord room into here, and we're trying to do like a discussion format which I've never done before, so it's a little bit all over the place. But so Rick, you can say what's up.
What's up? And Kimberly, I'm in Toronto, Canada, eh? How's it going, eh?
Awesome. So yeah, we were just talking about, like, Rick and I kind of follow this idea that everything is electric, and that history comes and tells us about these mythic archetypes and how they're all interconnected and what the real history is. So we're trying to talk about, and Rick is very good at this, where we've studied this topic, and there's this story that emerges from researching all these different symbols and the historic references from the Bible, from the different writings, and from the different teachings that kind of all converge to a, what would you say, like a 6,000, 10,000 year timeline, or maybe less?
Well, I would say if the scientific timeline is correct from about 12,000 to now, everything before that needs to be condensed big time.
Right.
Because of these thunderbolts of the gods coming in and just, like the Bible mentions, destroying a mountain and creating a mountain in a day. Moving land masses, changing the gravity constant of our world from about half of what it is now to what it is now, or a third of what it is now to what it is now. The fact is that these really supermassive dinosaurs couldn't move in our gravity today. Their bones would snap, their necks would break, their muscles and ligaments would tear under this gravity.
Yeah, I love this topic. There's one of those that, who's the guy who does it on Thunderbolts, but absolutely love it. So yeah, basically the blood not being able to be pumped up to the heads of the Brontosauri, or the pterodactyls not being able to fly. So you have this, and further than that, the interlocking of all the plates, so-called tectonic plates of Earth, the continents, really fit together very neatly.
I have a point about that.
Smaller Earth is, yeah.
One thing, if you look at Google Earth, bring it up and look at the expansion joints, what I call expansion joints in the Earth. They call it the plate tectonics. Mm-hmm. If you look in the north, you will see way less expansion joints than you do in the south. We think that when if you see a bullet going through an apple, when it comes through the other side, you can see where the exit point of the bullet, where the apple starts to open up a little bit.
Right.
That's our southern pole. If you look at our southern pole, it's got tons of expansion joints down there.
It's an exit wound.
Well, it's more just of an expansion thing. But yeah, it could be equated to like an exit wound of a high-speed bullet, but there wasn't anything shooting through the Earth other than the energy of this Birkeland current that flows all the time through our planet and
it also flows
breaks apart.
Yeah, I don't want to be silly about it. It flows in both directions, and it's more along these, what really looks like a toroidal form. And we were talking about it earlier, Rick, but I really think that you do have the energy funnel that fits within the torus, which is the hourglass. And
that's how our auroras are working. That's the energy's coming down, going across the face of the Earth, and then going back up. A lot of that energy is being transferred from that process into the crust of the Earth, and even deeper into the Earth, feeding what I think is not a metal ball spinning around heating the Earth because it's heat and pressure. I think there's a plasmoid, an electric plasmoid in the center of the Earth, and we see these huge stone spheres in Costa Rica and places, even in Bosnia. We see these huge stone spheres, and if you cut one open, they're hollow inside, and it's due to the Z-pinch effect on how things are created in zero gravity, they turn into spheres, and with the right amount of electricity, I'm pretty sure that you can counter gravity and or create your own gravitational field, which I think is happening on a very, very small scale in these electric sparks that are going on, especially when we watch the Project Sapphire vaporize the probe. That's the magical moment that I think that a lot of these things, a lot of these elements were created in.
Yeah, so look, sorry, I'm going to rewind you for a few. So we were talking about dinosaurs. I know we jumped way forward to Sapphire, but also a bunch of people joining. What's up, Tammy? What's up, Dagger Spells? And yeah, just hanging out here talking about some EU stuff, and went back to Jupiter so we can see the red storm leave. And this is a perfect opportunity to see the rotation of the planet Jupiter. Very simply, seeing the great red storm disappear around.
Oh, it's a beauty, eh?
Isn't it a beauty? This is the 3x. Same shot we saw Saturn last night. And then a little faint to the left at the 7 o'clock position, that's Callisto. And then to the left of that is not Europa. Well, it should be Europa. But we still can't see Europa. It's crazy. And then to the left of that is Io. And far top left is Ganymede. And the weather is actually chilled out for a second. The moon is gone. And so you were talking about dinosaurs. Let's talk about that just a little bit more, and maybe
and the change in gravity is due to the switch over from when we disconnected from Saturn. Right. We had to connect to the sun's solar circuit, and at that point, I think all hell broke loose.
So
in regards to the Earth expansion.
Yeah. So how
and
long?
Gravity change. Sorry.
So is the idea that dinosaurs were around about 12,000 years ago, 20,000, and
I think this detach of the polar configuration started about 20,000 years ago. Well, no, it probably started about 15,000 years ago as Saturn came in and encountered Jupiter probably once or twice before they really got together and caused some havoc for us.
So it does sound, let's see, let's quickly say what's up. What's up, Michael Loomis? How's it going? And let's see what else is going on. Oh, you're welcome. You're addicted to Thunderbolts Project, Tammy. And Sup Chris says, just got home, my man is in the hospital. Oh my god. Had surgery last Thursday. He has diverticulosis. Man, that sounds awful. So sorry.
Yeah, that's not good.
That's not good.
Not good at all. I'm sorry for your problem.
Well, thanks for hanging out with us and sending you good vibes, healing vibes to your man.
Darn tootin'. You take all the energy you need from me. I have lots these last little while. I've been feeling.
Sorry, Dagger. I'll speak a little louder. I had the mic pushed away from me.
I actually dropped my volume down a little bit so that it doesn't affect them too. Hopefully that's a little better.
I'm just trying to keep Jupiter. I feel like I just lost it. 1 second. So we were talking about change of gravity on Earth. We were talking about, well, you know why I'm kind of pulling back to this? So I typically listen to the Thunderbolts Project videos and or any type of science videos, and I yearn for more, like secondary and tertiary questions, right? And I feel like other people do too. So in terms of like setting up a topic like, damn, were there dinosaurs 20,000 years ago? And how did they die? What's the misinterpretation? why do we think that, and what's the evidence for it? How does dating change if that's the case? And so many topics like that. So maybe open it up to the chat, or maybe talk about it in a little bit more like granularity, or what you think. Maybe just speculate while I find Jupiter.
Oh, Wild says, yeah, I had a question for Rick way up there. Let me second. Let me go. I'm not sure what the question was, Wild. Can you repeat it? I'll sit here and watch the live stream. There's about a 10-second delay, so I'll...
Alright, I found it again. I don't know what happened there. I think a cloud came and then pressed it too far. I'll just get some footage of this setup. It's interesting. If you're just showing up, the moon Europa is basically to the left of Jupiter, and for some reason tonight, and that reason is probably because it's on an orbital that takes it farther away from us. But yeah, you can't see Europa tonight.
Oh, maybe it's in the shadow of Jupiter.
Against... Yeah, what's going on in the chat room? Tammy says has to have a second surgery.
Yeah, okay,
so
Wild, I'm waiting. I'll give you a minute. You're welcome, Kimberly.
Alright, cool.
I'm just glad Chris asked me to do this.
It's so much fun. It is a lot of mental work right now, but I finally was like, man, gotta invite people and let's talk. And Shockwave's been so nice, and Neil too. So I was talking about introducing some topics on the electric view, like what are the implications of redshift when it comes to Halton ARP, like how are distances determined in space. I've talked about that before a bit on the show, but I think like that deserves further inquiry. And things like, hexagons. So today in the Sapphire project they were talking about boundaries. Michael Claridge mentioned boundaries, and I think that goes hand in hand with crystal lattice structures and growth, and he even said that. So I feel like it makes you wonder like how the moon was formed, and how like these shapes are, or these planets are basically fused or grown, almost like the large Costa Rican spheres, which are giant versions of the blueberries.
Well, see, cognitive dissonance. I had to turn my head upside down there to read his name. He says the wing disk, also known as the winged beetle, was an observation of triple conjunction, and yeah, that's true.
Right.
The conjunction of planets that have always been sitting there until the breakup, Saturn, Venus, and Mars, and the wings, in fact, were Saturn's magnetosphere lit up in glow mode. A lot of energy was being imparted into Saturn, and Jupiter also had this winged configuration as well. But when you see the beetle combined with the wing, we know that the beetle was Squatterman, and we know that is the polar configuration for sure, 100%.
Yeah, totally agree. Mary's asking what's Neptune up this month, and I'll take a look at Stellarium, see what it is. Yesterday I was trying for Pluto, and I was in the general vicinity of it, but no dice. I'm gonna look it up. But anyway, lots of amazing discussions or chats tonight. It's super fun being able to lean on a co-talker. Anybody in the chat have any thoughts on dinosaurs, gravity being different on Earth, or any thoughts at all? Also, I encourage anybody new to check out the description for all the links and gear and setup, etc. Just still looking up Neptune over here.
Yeah, Neptune would be southeast over by Aquarius.
So right now it's, yeah, pretty far to the southeast for me. But let's see how long it would take to see it. Thing is, I don't know if it's not a guarantee without the right kind of skies. Yeah, it's pretty far overhead, so I don't know. Neptune will have to try towards the full moon when I'm on the 11 in the different front setup. Back porch doesn't have it, but I can see. Let's see if Pluto's around. Where is Pluto?
Okay, wild. What if there was another planet, or say a cluster of planets, or a planet with a cluster of moons such as Saturn, that they came into our solar system along with that alignment you were speaking about? Well, wild. I didn't get into the early phases of this polar alignment. There was only Mars and Saturn in this polar alignment at first. We were being pulled into the influence of this solar system through the southern pole region of our sun. We entered this solar system from the south pole region of the magnetosphere of our sun. So what happened when the two heliospheres touched, that was the point where Venus was born and Saturn became unstable and birthed Venus at that point. From that point on, we were, if you're familiar with the Egyptian legends of creation, the two cosmic eggs, well, one of those cosmic eggs was Saturn being pulled into this new solar system that we were in. And the other cosmic egg, I suspect, was Jupiter, which was either before us, headed into this new sun, and we watched this cosmic egg go in, and then we followed in behind it because we were birthed on what's referred to by NASA as a Herberg-Haro object. And that's basically a chain of stars that we see along these Birkeland currents out in outer space. And we know that the electrical force is proven
Rick,
to be...
One thought.
Go ahead.
Even though I can't pull it up right now, that chain of stars looks like the chain of craters on the moon. I'm going to reference that at some point soon. But
right.
It's recursive, like visually. Sorry, go ahead.
So yeah, on this chain of stars are our sun, Saturn, our ancient sun, was born, and we were probably in alignment at that point along the Birkeland current, close to Saturn. And when it was pulled into this new sun, this new solar environment that we're part of, it came in from the south, and it had basically turned into a comet, and there was a lot of electrical energy being imparted to Venus, Mars, and the Earth, and these electrical events caused devastating changes to this Earth. It increased the size of the Earth, it increased the mass of the Earth, the delivery of a lot of the mass of Mars. 6.5 kilometers of the northern hemisphere of Mars has been stripped off due to these electrical interactions between these worlds.
Ballast mariners.
Yeah.
And also
throwing mountain-sized chunks of matter rock into the space that we fly through every day.
So what about people watching these events? What kind of people? And, you know, did they have writing? Did they tell these stories? Did some of them survive? Was it 1 billion people? Was it a million people?
Well, I wanted to finish off with Wild's question.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
The moons that were around these gas giants that are now gas giants that were switched off from being brown dwarf stars, these moons were actually planets. The very large ones like Titan, that's a planet-sized moon.
Right.
And these things probably had atmospheres, but they were very close to all these devastating events that were written about by the Greeks and the Romans. The Battle of the Gods, the battle for Mount Olympus, all of this stuff weren't gods that walked around like they are portrayed in movies and, you know, have relationships with feminine beings that walk around with them. No, these were planets and interactions of electrical forces between these worlds that we gave human attributes to. None of these so-called ET stories are about ETs. They're all about the planets and the electricity that was thrown off, the thunderbolts of the gods. So I hope I answered your question about the cosmic eggs and, you know, these gas giants being pulled into the influence of this star and turning from really suns into now gas giants, and having to slough off some matter to equalize their new electrical environment. Go ahead, Chris.
No, that's great. I was just thinking about the people who witnessed this, you know?
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of the people that witnessed the beginning of all of this, they didn't survive when 12,900 years ago things really got crazy. And just, I mean, there's 120 megafauna species. Megafauna just means animals over 100 pounds in weight. Over 120 megafauna species died in this event. And this event probably only lasted a day or two or a week at the most. And it just wiped them off of the face of the earth. The ones that survived this, they were genetically changed by the electrical events that came down and changed them. From now they were a mammoth, or sorry, before they were a mammoth, now they're an elephant. Now they're a African elephant or an Indian elephant, depending on the region where these events happened. But they were, you know, physically changed from what they were before. Say that the giant lion is now just a regular sized lion and us. We know through scientific experiments in the laboratory that you flow electricity through genetic material. You can make changes to that genetic material, and it's still viable genetic material. It'll still grow into a being, but it will have made changes to that. And if it was drastic enough, these electrical events were drastic enough, which I think they were, they would be able to take our chromosomes and fuse the second and third together, that most people say that can only be done in a lab. I'm pretty sure that nature can do it too.
Yeah, that's important in terms of, you know, the misinterpretation and misrepresentation of this ufology movement.
You're breaking up, Chris?
Oh, am I? How about now?
That's better.
Yeah? Sorry, maybe the battery's dipping. So my point is what you were saying earlier about historical situations where our ancestors saw plasma events in the sky, anthropomorphized the writing, and basically humanized these shapes in the sky that are really not aliens. They're actually plasma events that were recorded in history. Further, the idea of things like Nibiru and the idea of chromosomal change or human-animal hybrid, this idea that reinforces the ufology kind of mythos and mythology, is actually due to these electrical changes as well, right?
One point about Nibiru, Chris.
Explain.
The Sumerians, in their texts, call Nibiru the planet Jupiter. So no worries about this 3,600-year-old orbiting planet coming in and destroying us, in a 1,000 years or however long. It's not going to happen because we just saw Nibiru a few minutes ago.
Yeah, I'm all about that. It was actually a huge relief to understand that, just from a completely outside perspective, because...
Yeah, well, there isn't this planet swinging through, causing devastating events every 3,600 years like these people say. The idea of these events happening regularly is this oscillation of Mars back and forth. Venus being born, pushing Mars towards the Earth, then Earth pushing Mars backwards towards Venus, and then there's an oscillation between these planets, and it takes not 5 years or 10 years or 20 years or 100 years. This plays out over a 1,000-year period, where some of these events of Mars coming close were in the polar configuration, but when the two gas giants interacted with each other and they exchanged charge between them, they changed their voltage potential,
right,
which sent them out to the outer solar system, taking the other gas giants, which were involved in the battle, as the Romans and the Greeks tell us, that Neptune and Uranus. I said it right.
Hell yeah. Iapetus.
Iapetus. They were all involved in the battle, and they were exchanging charges as well, changing their potential, so they had to go sort themselves out into the outer shells in the heliosphere out because of their now changed charge, leaving Venus, us, and Mars in this breakup of the polar configuration to float up into the ecliptic. You see, in this arrangement of the polar configuration, Earth was millions of miles below the ecliptic plane, while Saturn was in the ecliptic. Yeah, we were below all of this battling that was going on, and we were getting energies that were pumped through. Like, I think Jupiter may have even sent a bolt to the Earth as well. Yeah. And that was over a huge distance. That's over millions of miles in space. And an electrical bolt from one planet to another. It's amazing.
Yeah,
what our ancestors saw. Go ahead.
The mythological analogous analogy is Zeus, right? So Zeus with the thunderbolt is really this kind of mythic archetype that is really referential to planets and plasma interaction versus just, they just came up with this as a story, It's really simple. I'm throwing little pieces here and there, I like what you're saying, so just pepper in thoughts while I get back to Nibiru.
Just keep chunking them in there.
I'm also kneeling down next to the scope trying to find some Nibiru. Also, I know what I want to say. So what I want to say is, like, why people find things like Nibiru or like a planet that's going to come destroy us compelling. Like, what is that need?
Well, it's our genetic memory. It's our genetic memory with these massive objects in our northern hemisphere causing devastating events, and it's a memory back to that. Think about it, folks. Whenever there's a thunderstorm or a backfire of a car and you're right beside it, what's your first reaction? You jump, don't you? And that is a genetic memory of these devastating events. Not only electric bolts came down from the skies, but sounds that were just phenomenal, that would scare the living crap out of people that survived, and give them PTSD and make them put them in a state of the word I'm looking for, I'm searching for it again.
It'll come to you. Vicky says, no one ever says anything about the ether that was then and the ether of space between our planets now. It had more mass then, enabling the current to travel easier. That's a great point. Actually, we don't know. We think we know, but what was
well,
the
we know
like?
that we know that there may be something that kind of describes the ether, which is the morphogenic field, and which is basically the medium that light travels through.
But okay, let's hit that. So
well, no, I was going. He was talking about enabling the current, and that I was focusing on that. So if you look at plasma, Wild, what you see in space, in order for these currents to flow, all you need is one charged particle, one electron, one atom, one single charged particle per square meter of space to allow these charges to flow as easily as electricity flows along a copper wire to your computer. These charges flow in outer space. All it takes is one charged particle per square meter, and you have flow of charge. Then you have magnetic fields which pinch down and create galaxies and so on. Now, what were you saying, Chris? Sorry.
It's all good.
No, you were approaching it from a different angle. What was the angle you were? Did you forget your thought?
No, I was just like focused on reading some of the comments. Some new people showed up. Just want to say hi. Let's do that for a second.
Oh, we got 30 people watching.
Let's see. I've been reading.
Michael Loomis, Tom Budis.
Yeah, there's Aaron Morfeld. What's going on? Welcome.
Plain Truth.
There's Charlie Silverman. Welcome, welcome. There is Josh Corey of the Iron Realm. That's a pretty cool name.
Plain truth is that the universe is electric, plain and simple.
Let's see.
I made a joke about one of your subs' names. I'm sorry. I didn't offend anybody. I'm just.
Come on, don't make it a thing. It's not a thing.
It's not a thing.
If you say it's a thing, it becomes a thing. So don't say it's a thing. What's up, Justin?
It's not a thing.
So we're just checking out Jupiter here in a very interesting situation where we can't see Europa, and it's basically in view right now, but invisible to us. So you got Callisto and Ganymede and Io. And what else? Super must see what's going on. And
Genghis Khan.
So Vicky was just asking about like the ether then and the ether now. So I have, of course, my ideas on what the ether is, and sometimes it can feel like it's basically everything, and light.
Well, you see, my thoughts on the ether is everybody confuses the ether with these Birkeland currents that supply planets with energy and supply all pieces of matter that are separate from each other energy. And I think that's what people are trying to tap into, but I think it's almost an impossibility.
Well, the thought is, we were talking earlier about how I watch Ken Wheeler's stuff, Theory Hypothesis, and he talks about how it's essentially inertia is the ether. So it's this idea of it turns into something once you kind of interact with it.
Right, and if that is the case, then you can't really tap energy off of the inertia of very, very teeny tiny particles, but you can tap off energy of 10 million amps that are being supplied on the solar circuit. That's my point about the ether. Is we cannot go down into the ether and expect to tap large amounts of energy down in there, because there really isn't large amounts of energy. It's just frequencies and vibrations of this energy that create the matter. And we now know through Project Sapphire that it doesn't take a lot of energy to create these these elements.
I know this is super tangential.
It's a very low setting.
I was going to tell you in the chat earlier, but the elements that are created in the Sapphire project are also part of the moon rock composition. Sorry. Damn.
Right, and
I like
during the Sapphire video, if you guys will watch this later on, the Sapphire video mentions the fact that the elements that were created in the laboratory, in the jar of Sapphire, in the chamber, are so close. In fact, I think it was only 2 elements missing that of the elements that we observe in outer space. So it was almost an exact match of the elements that we see out there in outer space in these molecular clouds, dust clouds. We see the same elements in those dust clouds as we found created in the laboratory in Sapphire. That is a big key, folks. I mean, that it's not anything other than Sapphire is running on the rules of nature.
Yeah, they made a very clear distinction about how they're trying not to force things in the laboratory versus larger plasma experimental laboratories where they spend a lot of money to kind of really squeeze and contain plasma in different ways. So I think
high amounts of energy to do that.
Right.
With Sapphire, they're finding that they don't have to do that with large amounts of energy.
Yeah.
To just let the energy run and do its thing. And I mean, obviously they're doing it on smaller scale, like making smaller amounts of elements than these larger experiments are doing, probably, but still, it's doing it anyway at a lower power level.
Yeah, so there were several things in the Sapphire video. It's probably good. Let's just talk about that a little bit. I don't know if people have seen that, but if you just go to the Thunderbolts project on YouTube or type in Sapphire, Sapphire, you'll find what is essentially I think one of the best and most profound videos on YouTube currently, which is the update on laboratory experiment, plasma discharge, and plasma layers. There's so many features of it. They listed a whole bunch in the beginning. But I would recommend anybody who's interested in this topic to go look at this, because it's actual laboratory visuals.
Well, it's pretty technical stuff, Chris. And
it is, but I think...
they break it down...
One second, let me just finish my thought. So I just want to say that they break it down like you exactly taking words out of my mouth. I just want to say they present it in a way that is very complicated, yes, but also visually, I think, coherent for most people. Most people can judge things clearly with their eyes, and I think it's so important to do these laboratory observational science experiments.
Well, all I was going to say was
that's all.
It's complex information, but they do break it down in a manner that can be understood simply, not in a way. They don't like talk down to you. Basically, it's a really good video, and the information in there is groundbreaking. Like the fact that they created 11 elements in the chamber that weren't in the chamber before the experiment started. The fact that they see that these double layers are there in dark mode as well as glow mode and arc mode.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal information, and it kind of goes to the point of the Saturn wave last night. Me and Chris were talking about it like crazy, that we think that what we're witnessing on the moon and last night on Saturn was the fact that these double layers don't present themselves to the naked eye, but if you put a light source behind them, they might just present themselves like they did on the moon and on Saturn and Jupiter.
Yeah, keep going. I'm just finding this link.
Well, it's just because we think that these energetic forms like Birkeland currents or double layers refract light in the same way that, say, a star does, or a planet does, or a moon does. In the bending of light. So like Hal Narp and his idea of the redshift not only being a measure of distance, but being a measure of youth, we can think of the bending of light being performed in multiple ways. The gravitational field of a planet or a star, or a Birkeland current. The energy of a Birkeland current can do the same thing.
Yeah.
And I'm finding that the universe is really funny. A star, a gas giant can birth a planet, or a planet can be created on a Z-pinch along a Herbert-Haro object, like I think the Earth was, and a star or a planet could also be accreted in a disk, like these NASA scientists say, but it's not through gravity. It's the electrical force is accreting the matter together quicker than gravity could.
I want to just finish a thought before what I was mentioning Ken Wheeler and Tattooed Monkey. Just about, I think he came to a point where it dawned on me that he was basically saying that everything is the ether, and everything that we see is a modality or a modulation of the ether, right? So gravity, electricity, magnetism, all of these are like akin to water, steam, ice, etc.
Well, we could consider the ether being energy, because Tesla knew what it was, and he described it as energy. Everything in the universe can be described as energy, as he said, and that energy, through its varying frequencies and vibrations, makes up everything we see. In other words, matter.
Right. Let's quickly address Starlight's question. It says, Starlight Spectrum says, okay, so when the refraction occurs as you are streaming Saturn, did the telescope shift or move? It was the tripod still. So the scope that I scope on right now, which is the same one, is pretty much the same setup. It's got the 3x Televue Barlow, and it's got the Sony a6 V, and it was shaking basically just as much as it is right now, because it's in the exact same location. So that's really the answer to your question. It's shaking a little bit, but if you look at the video, you'll see that the phenomenon has a very distinct movement vector.
Yeah, a linear pattern to it for sure.
Sharp
great
edge.
Big line running right through it.
Yeah, and the very quick, I don't want to say debunking, I don't like that word, but kind of, it's not airplanes because it's really not a turbulent edge, it's a sharp edge. And if you look at all airplane trails, they spiral. So, and the other thing is, if it was a camera effect, you'd see this across the board with a ton of Sony cameras, plus other people have captured the same event with a astronomy cam, like an ASI. Crow captured it with a DSLR. a bunch of other people have captured it with various different types of cameras. So, it occurs in the same way for everybody. This double wave or double diffraction movement. Now, it doesn't mean that Saturn is waving. It doesn't mean that Saturn's a hologram. It doesn't mean that Saturn is fake or Jupiter is fake. It just means that there's an atmospheric or ionospheric or magnetospheric or something else that basically goes across the sky and affects our view of Saturn and Jupiter and the moon. And we're trying to think about what that is, right? Does that make sense? Not trying to be conspiratorial, but it's obviously something that occurs, and a lot of people can see it and have captured it. And
as I say, we're going to capture it more and more and more as more and more cameras and telescopes setups are trained on these objects.
Yeah, Starlight says, just wrote that all fucking wrong. Was the ripple effect caused by any form of electric currents? So that's what we're talking about, really, like that everything is really electrical and currents exist in layers and layers and layers around Earth.
Double layers, as they're referred to.
Yeah, if you see the link I sent above the Sapphire project, you'll see in a laboratory the recreation of these types of layers that exist around Earth. And you can see
that's in high glow mode. I'd like to add, Chris. When you're looking at these layers on this anode, this bright little thing that looks like a sun, you see these layers. Well, these layers are on our sun as well. We just can't see them because the conditions aren't correct as they are in the laboratory.
Yeah, I mean, that's why those beautiful pictures from the eclipses, when you see those kind of filamentary structures coming out from the sun, people look at them and they're like, oh, that's really pretty, but they don't consider what they really are. But they're the same types of filaments that are coming off Comet 67P. They're the same filaments that are coming off like basically filamentary plasma exists. It's dusty
on all scales.
Yeah, like the Martian dust storm that happened as Mars approached Earth during opposition. That really didn't get a lot of attention from the astronomical community, because they don't consider the value of interaction between planetary bodies. But it would make sense that the alignment and the opposition of Mars and Earth and other, I guess, planetary systems at the time.
I was just going to say, if you remember, a few months before that, the storms popped up too.
Right.
And then they dissipated because a comet went over the North Pole of Mars on a close.
Exactly. Yeah. No, keep going. Yeah.
No, I was done. I was just adding to that. Go ahead.
Yeah. So basically, inducing current. It's something that we do all the time on Earth, and it probably happens naturally in space. And so these kind of interactions between comets, like right now, if you want to look up comets and the sun, you'll see all this footage from SOHO, and you'll see the interaction between comets and the sun. But if you read articles about it, for some reason pop science is just not really caught on to the fact that these two things really make a difference, like electrical interactions in space.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to answer Truth Be Told's question. He says conditions aren't correct and it's all in dark mode. No, the sun is in heavy arc mode. It's not in glow mode. It's in arc mode, and the heat given off are all these electrons trying to escape the surface of the sun, and well, the surface being its atmosphere, you could call it, that is away from the surface. When these electrons have to ramp up in power to be able to escape out into the solar wind, to become solar wind. And to do that, it creates high temperatures of like 12 million degrees, 11 million, 12 million degrees away from the surface. So the sun is in arc mode because it's receiving like 10 billion amps of energy,
right?
Where the Earth only receives from the sun 10 million amps of energy. That's 10 to the 7th power. The sun receives 10 to the 9th power of amperage, and it's phenomenal amounts of energy. We could power every city on the planet with 10 million amps, no problem. And that's not 10 million amps a day. That's 10 million amps every second.
I was going to answer Starlight in a tiny bit more depth. So Starlight mentions, let's see, you're basically
was the ripple effect caused by any form of electric current?
Well, after that, she was saying that Saturn was still rippling or
warping even after the plasmic.
Yeah, so the simple answer for that is that the entire movement of our skies or our ionosphere probably is related to the same type of movement that you'd see in this plasma layer or Birkeland current that's moving, or whatever the movement is probably following the or you know, whichever.
I'm not sure what she meant by warping.
So if you look at the clip again from last night, you'll see that on a very fine level, there are these very tiny versions of these waves passing over. Even now.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, there's a tiny same direction.
If there's distortion at the edges of this double layer, I would imagine, you have minute distortions within the double layer itself. Consider it like a band of darkness that has a defined edge that we can't see unless there's a light source behind it. And within that light source behind it, you can see the light doing refractions. And if there was smaller ones in between the two big ones, then that may be even more evidence of it being a double layer.
I'm sorry, I can barely speak. I just mean, like, in general, there's a movement of, like, I think either solar wind or neutrinos or whatever, where there's a general motion of noise, fractal noise, that permeates our vision and videos. It's basically called fractal noise or grain, but this grain has a movement, and the movement is like a wind. So I feel like the same way that kind of the refraction comes in, or whatever the movement happens there. See, I think it actually moves, because it's not something where, like, things are passing by the same way right now, like Jupiter is kind of slowly drifting. But that wave actually had momentum, or the refraction had momentum and movement to it. So my point is that I lost my point, but my point is
the wave had momentum.
The wave had momentum. It had character. So it had this kind of really defining.
It had structure.
Yeah, it had defining features and a fall off, and then the fact that there were tiny ripples in between and before and after might be due to the fact that they're interconnected as events. Basically, maybe this Birkeland current moves through our ionosphere or plasmasphere, and or magnetotail or magnetopause, and it's pushing this current around Earth, and this is the fractal noise and grain that we see.
We see the structure of our magnetosphere is not a perfect toroidal form, and I think because of that fact, where it pinches down in certain areas and is being forced closer to another one,
right,
that might be the distortion in between the two lines that we saw. So again, I think it's more evidence of it being a double layer of our magnetic field, not a Birkeland current out further out.
Okay.
Because if if it was a Birkeland current farther out, like I was thinking, or like I subjected my thoughts to, thinking that maybe it was a Birkeland current further out that was between Saturn or Jupiter and the telescope. But we see this wave on the moon, so no, it can't be. It can't be small. It can't be anything small at all. It's got to be something very big. And our magnetosphere is huge. It's massive, and the distortions in our magnetosphere from the solar wind could cause these double layers to come close together and force them just in certain areas where it can only be seen in certain areas of the sky, and not all the planets are in those areas all the time. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's why it's so rare to see. That's my thoughts on it anyway. But
I dig it. Mary, take it easy. Have a great night.
Oh, good night, Mary. Chris, what about the idea of a musical interlude? You haven't played any music yet, and we've been talking
let's do it. I need a break too.
Geez, an hour maybe or more.
No, 2:12, man. We've been killing it. I love it. This has been super stimulating, as people have mentioned, for me as well. And also, we're getting awesome views, considering like I got a Cat 5 hanging out off the coast. But you know, we're probably talking about the same things that are keeping that hurricane far out right now. But also trying to spread some kindness out to all the really horrible crap that's going on in the world
Chris
today.
Just brings up a point. Yeah, I feel you. I mean, all the crap that goes on in this world is just nuts, and we just got to drop everything that the Bible says and take Jesus' words and live by Jesus' word. I'm not a Bible thumping Jesus freak at all, but his words make sense. His do unto others as you would have done unto you is pretty much the only rule that people need to live by.
I agree. That's a good point. Or whoever said those words, you can, even if it was your inner conscious, your inner mind said, you know, I want to treat people the way I want to be treated. It's a great foundation.
Yeah, everything,
for kindness.
everything falls under that statement. You know, coveting thy neighbor's wife falls under that state. You wouldn't want anybody to covet your wife, so why would you do that to somebody else's wife? It's just common sense and love, caring and compassion that everybody needs to spread to everybody else, because we all know that hate spreads very easily. If you're angry and you take it out on other people, they get angry and they take it out on other people, and it just spreads like wildfire. Well, love does the same thing.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great way to put it. I wanted to damn. It's like,
you wanted to go for the music? Is that what you said?
I want to go for music, but I want to respond to Vicky. I was just scrolling up. Sorry, I get like fumbled. All right, so it says, could the distortion have been an actual solar wind stream, and we were in the perfect spot? Where was the sun? Where was the sun, and which way did the solar wind hit Saturn then? It's a good question. I didn't want to ignore it because I think
I think I have an answer to that. If it was a stream of the solar wind, we know that the solar wind flows along the ecliptic where all the planets are. This seemed to come from the North Polar region and cross around, or it started up at the North Polar region, and it did that on Jupiter as well. But Jupiter's a little bit more angled slightly differently than Saturn is. So it came in from the same angle basically and flowed down through Saturn and Jupiter at the same kind of rate, and it just basically flowed in front of that planet. So that leads me to suspect that it's our magnetosphere and these double layers being forced together, causing this energy to be crunched in dark matter or dark mode together, so that it almost looks like it's gonna fire into glow mode, but has that property of glow mode, but doesn't, because it's not doesn't have enough energy in that system, but it allows that distortion to happen still. It was a long explanation.
That's an awesome answer. Alright, so I'm just setting up a wide shot here, and we'll take a musical break. Yeah, this is an awesome show. Thanks again, Rick. 10:55, and it's cooling off a little bit. We'll take a couple of minutes to walk around and let you all chill and digest some of this info. I hope we tackled all your questions, or as much as possible. And let's see. So pretty.
Well, Wild, if you consider it to move like a wave, then your thinking of the solar wind is incorrect. It's more like a pressure. It's not, when they describe it as a wave, it's completely wrong. It's more of a pressure, a solar pressure.
Doesn't it move out in all directions from the sun?
No, it moves out along the ecliptic.
Okay.
And it's basically charged particles moving outward. It's not really a wave or a wind.
Yeah, also the idea of a wind or current is really fundamentally electrical.
Yeah, exactly. It's all of these negatively charged particles leaving the sun and speeding out towards the negative cathode of our solar system, which is the heliosphere of the sun, that is out way beyond the Oort cloud, or supposed Oort cloud.
Vicky says, "Yes, I know that. Damn it." I added the damn it. All right, I wanted to talk about photons and particles, but we should take that break real quick before I start.
Right, I'll write down photons and particles.
You know I won't forget it. All right.
Oh, okay, you won't forget it. All right, I'm not going to write it down.
I'll be back, folks, in a few.
Where's the LOL, folks? Come on. Say that the moon shot that he took with the wave was in a different position than the shots of Jupiter and Saturn that he'd been taking in the southeastern sky. Apparently the moon wave that he caught, or a couple times that he caught, one was above, like 60 degrees level, but at its apogee, at its highest point, and not apogee, but at its highest point in the sky. And another one was when it was out in the west, in the far west. So, for it to be in the solar wind, I don't think so. That more inclines me to believe that it was, again, our magnetosphere that's causing this, the double layers being crunched down due to the solar pressure being placed on the magnetosphere from our sun. Welcome back.
Man, oh man, I needed some food so badly. What's going on in the chat room? Oh, damn. That was like a little airplane, right? Yeah, a little airplane passenger jupes.
I keep missing it. I was looking at the text.
Just a tiny red light trail. Tom, sorry you missed it last night. Just a pretty trippy event. It's so cool because I have these two monitors, and on the right side I read the chat, on the left side I see the preview, and out of the left side of my eye I was like, what? Oh damn, is that another one? No.
Yeah, it was.
Damn, that's two.
I didn't miss it that time.
It's pretty funny. I love this configuration. It looks like Jupiter at the tip of a dipper. Tip dip. What's cracking? Bumbaclat, Gato fish. And
Bumbaclat, Urasman.
Bumbaclat.
I do accents pretty good too, folks.
I try not to be too. I only do ones that I'm really sure of because sometimes pretty off, and people get offended. I love that people are chill in this chat room. Everybody's being respectful. It's very, it's easy to say that's it's just a testament to the cool subs on this channel and everybody who's stuck around for so long, and Rick for joining tonight and talking some plasma.
Some electric universe.
Hells yeah. Have I missed anybody in the chat? Karen B, what's going on? Welcome. What's up, Globe Busters?
Hey, Mackenzie.
Bob? The Globe Busters are here. Bob, I guess. And I see a Bob.
A Bob? Hey, Bob.
Do you know Bob Globe Busters?
No.
And DITRH. I think I remember you. This sounds like a Beck song with the talking. What's up, man? I'm just going back up to the top. Flat Out Faith. Cool Jams. What's up? Welcome. Just want to make sure we say what's up to everybody. Cool. So if you're new, please check out the description of the video and the old videos and playlists. In fact, just a quick note on old playlists. I went through it today and I realized that it's very tough to actually find the old playlists, but you do have to just click on created playlists, and I'm going to link to it right now on the channel, but I'll try and figure out a solution to really put the more important ones up close, or more up to the top, but I couldn't find the solution today. In either case, one more time, just going to post the Sapphire link because this was the best video today besides the Saturn.
Well, when they described the fact that Sapphire created the elements that our galaxy and our universe create, that are everywhere out there, that is big, folks. That is something that most people don't understand, that how big it is. It's so big that we just in the laboratory matched what our universe does.
Right.
And what our sun does. We did the same thing that our sun does, create new elements.
And I mentioned earlier
not new elements, like not elements that have never been seen before, but elements from nothing.
Yeah, but fundamental elements, you know. And these elements are also found probably on the surface of comets and asteroids, and probably the surface of the moon. If you see the moon rock origins.
But not only fundamental elements, we're talking heavy elements too. Mm-hmm. Heavy metal. That's a biggie, folks. That's a real biggie.
It's a huge video for sure. I mean, they've been working on it for a while, so it's not just this huge surprise. A lot of people have been waiting for it. When I saw it came up today, it was just fucking amazing. Who else we
I had just woke up from a nap, and Chris asked me if I'd seen the Thunderbolts video, the new one on Sapphire, and I went, what?
Exactly. And it was 48 minutes. Love it. And I love the way they shot it. and the quality of it, that's the type of stuff that's really going to get people interested and asking questions. So important. Let's see if we missed anybody in the chat. What's up, A. McKinsey? Hey. And what up, Risky Poodles? What's going on? Yeah, we've been trying. This was the first time I've ever had anybody on TakeBackSpace out of like 600 shows. So Rick is the first, and that's been really fun. And we're going a bit longer, and I can barely speak anymore. But Jupiter's about to start setting. Saturn is still way up high, but yeah, fun.
And another big announcement in the Sapphire video was the design of a prototype energy generator.
Right.
That is a big one, and it's going to be very, very efficient, apparently.
Yeah. So what's great about the guys who are running this project, not Thunderbolt's project necessarily, but Sapphire, is Montgomery Childs and Michael Claridge, and there's another scientist, the younger guy, who wasn't in this video really primarily. He was there for a second, but where was I going with this? At the end
talking
of it,
about the prototype energy generator.
Right, they were talking about how they want to start changing the language and the idea behind this idea of free energy or over unity devices, from this idea of free because you really can't get anything for free, and really just making it hyper efficient and using plasma and electrical means to create energy systems and devices that are clean and that are efficient and cheap. So it's a really nice...
Speaking of clean, folks, you know that we like to burn atomic fuel rods once in a while, right? In our atomic fuel plants. Well, with the findings of Sapphire, we can now turn those radioactive fuel rods into inert metals through the power of electrical transmutation.
Right, so what that means is basically radioactive decay can be affected by electric discharge
electric currents.
Electric currents, yeah. It's amazing.
So if we run enough energy or enough electrical energy through a fuel rod, we will render it inert, and you could grind it up and sprinkle it on your dinner and eat it after that point. And it's not like you would want to, but you could, because there would be no radioactive harm at all there.
When you bring that up, you brought it up earlier, it reminds me of a Royal Institute talk by that was published much later, because he had this whole talk about radioactive isotopes, and he did actually, I think, eat it or tell the audience that he would eat it, and he was explaining how, I'm forgetting it, maybe somebody will remember in the chat, but let me see if I can find it actually. Either way, so much going on tonight. I love it. It's a little bit more busy. It's a bit busier than a typical TBS show, but I love it. Let's put a little music on the background. And see what people are talking about. Oh, right. About basically extrapolating a little bit on the fact that half-life and radioactive decay can be modified by electric induction or discharge or current. How does that actually pertain to aging and like radiometric dating and the age of the Earth when it comes to essentially having a catastrophic event that changes the radioactive decay of potassium or plutonium or uranium,
or
yeah,
in the case of carbon dating, adds carbon or takes away carbon from a certain thing to make it look older or younger than it is.
Sure.
there's a way of dating rock, and they use this process for dating rock all the time. What was found is they took samples from a volcano that had just erupted and the rock had just cooled. They took samples, they tested it, and they found the rock to be 100 million years old. What?
From recent volcanic activity.
From a brand new volcanic eruption. 100 million year old rock. We can see that their dating systems are incorrect. In a perfect world, they may be true if all the factors are right, but there are these thunderbolts of the gods came down and they did stuff that we just can't conceive of them doing at the moment. We don't even understand how. There's a legend in Australia, and I'm going to run you through it right quick.
Go for it.
The Aborigines of Australia have a legend. They found a diamond mine in Kimberley, Australia, and they hired Aborigines obviously to come work in the mine. And there was a tale that this diamond mine sits on a holy place where it was said that a snake came out of the ground, flew in the air for 150 miles, and went back into the ground. Well, the head of the mine wanted to see where this snake re-entered the ground, and he asked them if they knew where it was, and they said, "Yeah, we'll take you there." And what was found where the snake went into the mine or back into the ground was another diamond mine. So diamonds can be created through heat and pressure, yes, but what happens with an electrical discharge? You get the same thing, heat and pressure, but you get it many times more. Many more power level times than just regular heat and pressure sitting under rock for millions of years. This is high energy stuff,
right?
And if Sapphire can create elements in the chamber, we now understand that this legend is more than likely true, that diamonds were created in a prominence like we see on the sun, on the surface of the sun, these magnetic loops of fire that spit off the sun and then loop back down to the other side of that prominence.
Yep.
Well, these loops were seen on the Earth when there was a lot more energy being imparted to the Earth in the polar configuration.
Okay, so let me see if I can try and articulate something. So I sent an image earlier, the Apollo 16 ultraviolet imaging from the moon of
right,
Earth.
I remember.
And if you see pictures of Neptune, Uranus, and other planets from a distance in infrared and ultraviolet, you get these kind of, you see the plasma kind of sheath or ionosphere or atmosphere, we're going to call it, but really it's a plasma layer of some sort, of different density, of different number of layers, of different charge and strength. So what I'm trying to articulate is, if this is the case, then can you determine age of planets by charge versus by radioactive decay? Can you follow a charge map? But I don't think I'm articulating it correctly.
No, I understand exactly what you're saying. The only way that we really can kind of determine the age of a planetary body or a sun or a gas giant is through observation of other objects out there, like through the observation of seeing Herberg hair objects change from strings of pearls, stars on string of pearls, into a solar system. We haven't observed that yet because we are infants in the sciences all of the sciences, in fact, but especially in observing. Even though we've been using telescopes for 400 years, those early telescopes were as good as your binoculars are.
Yeah.
Basically, I mean, you take a set of binoculars out there that you go to the store and buy. That's the same kind of magnification that Kepler was working with.
Exactly. You can't see much. You can see a little
Yeah,
bit.
you can't barely see anything at all. You just see little bigger white dots.
I'm sure they were using other tools, but you also have to take into account they had darker skies for sure, so less ambient light.
Oh yeah. There's that factor.
There's a big factor in that. That's a whole rabbit hole. But I want to talk to
you. If you're ever in Ontario, Chris.
Yeah.
Come, and we'll go to the Dark Sky Preserve in just north of Kingston, Ontario.
Yeah, it would be nice.
You'll see the stars like you've never seen them before.
It's always very tempting to get on the road with all this gear, but I have not invested the time and energy into getting that. Right now, I kind of get it to a point where I can actually just go live when I feel like it, with as little effort as possible, and that's become the go-to.
Road trip.
What up? I gotta say though, we've talked a little bit about it, but Ben Davidson had that kind of mobile road thing, and that was really cool. I gotta say, a little bit jealous. He did that a while ago.
Well, I mean, like I say, if you're ever
in the best way, of course. Whoa, got a little feedback. What's up, Hemp Alchemy?
No, that was my phone. I have Darth Vader telling me that the power, the ability to destroy a planet is insignificant next to the power of the Force. On my notifications, so.
What was I going to say? I was going to shift it maybe a little bit to maybe Peter Mungo Jupp and petrification, fossilization. Since you were talking about
since we were on Peter Mungo Jupp on the diamond mines, that's where I learned that tale. He mentioned it in one of his videos, and it's also known that in northern Quebec, I think it is, or maybe not Manitoba, that some power lines fell across the tree stumps that the trees had been cut down to allow for the power lines, and they didn't shut the power off right away, and they allowed the power to run through. What happened to the tree stumps will absolutely dumbfound you. These tree stumps were turned to stone. Brother. They were turned to stone. From biomatter, with this electricity flowing through it for a while, they were turned into stone. Now we see mammoth bones and dinosaur bones, and what do they look like? They look like they're stone, right? Well, these animals were huge, and if these electrical events took place on the surface of the Earth, like we know they did, or we suppose they did in the electric universe, we know they did, they shocked and killed all these animals, and they were exposed, and they were piled up into great groups of bones. There are mammoth bones with their feet missing, and we've found mammoth feet with their bodies missing, and the electrical force would have sheared them off at their feet and piled them up in great big piles of when things were at their worst. We're talking tornadoes and hurricanes side by side within hurricanes, or tornadoes within hurricanes, at supersonic speeds, updrafts and downdrafts at supersonic speeds, just carving the land up.
Yeah, let's shout out Michael Steinbecker and Andrew Hall, right?
And I see Hemp Alchemy on a Flat Earth.
We got a lot of people.
Welcome.
Yeah, welcome to everybody joining. It's packing in. Michael Wise, good to see you. So I got Jupiter setting close to the west, and Saturn is still in view, but I got some clouds moving in. So we'll go another, I don't know, 15, 20. You feeling good, Rick? I'll chill.
Yeah, how about another 5-minute musical interlude before we go into...
Yeah, let's do that. And just a quick shout out to, truth be told, I was going to say what's up.
Oh, it's because most people here come for your music too, Chris. They just don't want to hear two dudes talk about the electric universe. They want to hear your tunes.
I feel you. I don't know. I think this has been good, actually. I know I've lost a lot of threads, but this is really awesome. Rick keeps me on track on some ideas, and Rick has some amazing ideas himself, and is very well researched. So I appreciate everybody hanging out and listening to us rant and ramble about these thoughts. And I know that sometimes it seems like how the hell do you guys know all this stuff, or why do you think all this stuff so concretely? That's just because I think I've spent a lot of time on this personally, and I know Rick has, and it's a very empowering line of research that allows you to look at the world in different ways and make your own analyses. And that's what's great about it. It doesn't rely on like a gotcha or a trick. You just understand that everything is fundamentally electric and kind of start extrapolating ideas from there. So nothing is really off the table, but you're able to really have critical thinking about ideas and physics and math. At least
before you go into the musical interlude, Charlie just asked a question.
Sure.
Did Medusa/Venus turn people to stone? Those who dared to look at her. I don't think it was those who dared to look at her, Charlie. I think it was those that dared to be outside during the connection of Venus's tail when it connected to the Earth and brought these thunderbolts down. And those that were caught outside and electrified were turned to stone. Yeah.
It's really terrifying in one way, and another way extremely beautiful because of the power of the universe to be able to do something like that. So it's a great way of looking at science, both in an awestruck, but also in a self-empowered way. Our current cosmology and pop science really puts humans at the very bottom. It makes us feel very dumb and disconnected.
Well, they say face your fears, and if you know what your fears are, like right now, humanity doesn't know what their fears are.
Right.
But the electric universe shows you what your fears are. They show you that these events happened long time ago, and they show you that the conditions for these events to happen again aren't here anymore. And the only thing that can harm us right now is a mass coronal ejection from the sun or a very large comet or asteroid slamming into the Earth. And we're not 100% sure they do slam entirely into the Earth. We think a lightning bolt comes from the ground and decimates them just before they touch down.
That's pretty funny. You were just like, nothing can really harm you except everything.
Well, there's only two things now that
only
can do
two
that.
massive
and
world-ending.
they're not well they're not very likely to happen anytime soon, is what I'm saying. Like, we have a magnetosphere to protect us in case of a small flare. A flare and a coronal ejection are one and the same thing, but a mass coronal ejection is something other than just a flare. It's a big chunk of the surface of the sun being sloughed off.
Shuffed. All right, little musical interlude, because we could really just go off on a million tangents, but.
Well, that's where the electric universe leads you. It goes into everything because everything's electric.
Certainly. Let's just shout out Velikovsky and Halton Arp and David Talbot, Walt Thornhill, and many others who have brought to
Anthony Peratt, which was the key to understanding these petroglyphs, really.
Right. Billy Elverton for doing laboratory discharge.
And Christian Birkeland.
Nikolai Tesla, Steinmetz, Maxwell, and many others. And check the links in the description for other stuff. And I'm here, I'm hanging out. Just gonna have a quick smoke and play some tunes for y'all. Let's do...
That's what they come for, the music.
A little bit of music.
I could see everybody standing up and dancing.
This is my little Fela Kuti ripoff. My nod to Afrobeat.
Well, we're back to the speaking part. Okay.
Yeah.
I was reading some of the comments, and there were a couple about Satan and Saturn. Satan, and we know from the records that Satan is Saturn.
Mm-hmm.
Satan/Saturn was our benevolent God. He grew humanity up. He gave us life. But at one point in history, when the main god came into play, Jupiter, and castrated Saturn, apparently, so the stories go. That fact that Satan means adversary. Well, if the world in the Middle East looked at Jupiter as the main god now, then Saturn would become Jupiter's adversary or Zeus's adversary. So that makes complete sense.
Yeah.
If you look at it from that aspect. And I don't see how else you can look at it, because in the ancient world, Saturn was known by 50 different names, and same with Jupiter. But Jupiter has always been the main god from the time of the breakup. Before that, it was just Saturn. Saturn was the main god, and he was the benevolent god and the good god. But at the time of the breakup, his aspect had changed from the benevolent god to the malevolent god, and he was known to eat his children. There are depictions
exactly.
of Saturn eating his children, and we're not sure if his children refer to as the two gas giants Uranus or Neptune, which might have been on the other side of Saturn that we didn't see. And when the perturbation happened of Saturn and Jupiter, when they met, it pushed Saturn away. We could finally see those two gas giants, and then it came back. That's one way of looking at it. Or literally, Saturn's children, the human race, was devastated by Saturn. Or it looked like Saturn had devastated us. But it was really the interaction of Jupiter coming in and causing the havoc.
So great. Totally.
That's the way I see it. And that's the way most of the people in the electric universe see it, because it really makes a lot of perfect sense.
Quickly in the chat room, was asked about Osric tentacles. Looks cool. I'm going to take a look at it later. It looks like some psychedelia. Psychedelic rock, and I love that. Anybody else in the chat asking stuff? Tammy, man, that sounds really rough. I hope your man gets the right care, some time to heal. And who else?
Ooh, cognitive dissonance just comes up with an alchemy question. Well, not a question.
Yeah.
It says alchemy is a lesser form of magic practiced, and astrology is a pagan perversion of astronomy. Well, if you really get into the electric universe, you understand what the reason why alchemy came about is. We as a species watched as the thunderbolts of the gods came down and changed things from what they were into new stuff. Like the story of the diamonds being created through these electric arcs, these electric prominences that we see on the sun, but they were here on the earth, these snakes as they're described by the Australian Aborigines. This is the alchemy. This is the reason why the concept of alchemy came about. We saw the gods change something into something else. We probably watched a lot of gold and petrochemicals being deposited on the earth through these electrical interactions and these sweeping through of cometary tales of Venus. Like, think about what it says about manna in the Bible. Manna from the heavens fell from the skies. The Jewish people in the desert were starving, right? And they needed sustenance, and it was provided by the heavens, by God. And I think that it was us flying through the cometary tail of Venus at that point in time, and it provided complex carbohydrates from the heavens. All they had to do was bake it and eat it. It couldn't be eaten as it fell. It had to be baked. Then it was edible.
Man, I think this is Europa coming into view. Are you seeing this?
Oh, yeah.
How crazy is that view?
I told you it was being blocked by Jupiter. It was behind, not completely behind, but it was in the shadow of Jupiter. That's why you couldn't see it.
I just love it. I don't think I've ever got that shot.
Well, you got it now, and everybody saw it.
Is everybody cool in the chat room? Just checking here. Plasma needs matter. Plasma, I think, is matter. It's just when it's pinched, it becomes, or illuminated, or inducted, we see it. And it's a dance between us seeing plasma materialize. But plasma, in my opinion, is basically, you could consider it everything.
Well, plasma is energy.
Right.
Basically, plasma is energy, and we know from Einstein's equation that energy 2 times equals. We just don't know what matter is. we don't have a like the same with gravity. We know what it does. We can describe what it does. We just don't know what it is. That applies to magnetics. We know what a magnetic field is. We can describe it. We just don't know how it's created. What are the circumstances that create this matter, gravity?
Yeah.
We're still children in the science labs. We're 10-year-olds pretending to be, 60-year-olds with lab coats. Even these lab coats are 10-year-olds because they just don't know anything. Everything is a theory, by the way, unless it's been proven in a laboratory experiment, like Amps law, watts, volts. All those laws have been proven in a lab, and it's the best that we have to date, along with Maxwell's equations. They're things that have been proven in the lab for this constant that we enjoy right now.
I will say, though, even with that, right, even in 100 years, we move, we shift, plasma shifts. So all our physics is probably shifting very slightly, in my opinion, in different ways.
Yeah, you're correct. Our sun is spiraling through space. It's proven. We know the motion of the sun and where it's headed, and that it's in a spiral motion, and all the planets are spiraling along with this sun.
So it's important to note how when we were connecting charge and electrical current to gravity and magnetism, or at least I was connecting it to magnetism, but is actually translated as the universe moves forward, all these properties are being changed incrementally, or maybe not incrementally, maybe massively at certain junctures through space and time, if you will. But like, so even light and the way light speed is determined, or Fraunhofer diffraction, that might change ever so slightly. Even the way we see and consciousness might be.
Well, it does. We saw that in Sapphire. Sorry, Chris,
Yeah.
to interrupt, but
All good.
The speed of light in Sapphire, they just told us that they slowed it down 5 times. So from 3,000 miles an hour, they slowed the speed of light down in that chamber 5 times. That's big, guys and gals.
Vicky says matter is sound, and I just want to connect that to a thought I had earlier about Kent Wheeler's idea of inertia being the ether, and basically waves, the ether waving, not like what is
well,
it?
not waving, saying, but moving.
But moving, but really he's saying sound, in a way, in the ether creates matter. So resonance, in a way.
Frequencies and vibrations, yeah. Because that's all sound is frequency and vibration.
Yeah, so we're essentially spoken into existence, in a way.
As the Bible says, as the Bhagavad Gita says, that the universe was spoke into existence.
And check this really, I love this view where it's flickering through the tree branches and then glowing with these 3 moons right next to Jupiter. It's amazing. About to lose this view, and then we're going to switch to Saturn and start winding it down. I need to chill and finish all the food in my fridge.
Well, I need to go get a refill of orange juice. I'll be right back.
Yeah, go for it. I'll talk to the peeps and play some tunes. What's going on, chat room? Let me know if everything's good, if you've enjoyed the show tonight. It's been pretty wild. And I didn't want to jump in on everybody's discussion in there. I hope everybody's keeping it respectful. Per usual. Good energies to all people out there tonight. I know it seems really empty to say that, but I guess it's similar to prayers. But really, all we can do is think about, one, how difficult it is for some of us, and put everything into context, and how we can also look at how honestly great we have it tonight to be able to sit and enjoy this, and how we can treat people better because we get that opportunity and other people don't. So we need to carry on the ethics, the global ethics of the human race, space race. It's just a thought in terms of we get to exist on this tiny pocket of time where Earth is not completely destroyed by forces beyond us. Got a little bit of
All right, I'm back. And no, there's no vodka in the orange juice.
I'm waiting for OBS to come back.
Stream went down.
I know.
Damn.
Start streaming. Let's try this again. Alright, come on. It says green.
Took a few seconds last time too, so.
Yeah. There we go. There we go. Yeah. Sweet. Back in business.
Welcome back.
Alright, so still checking out this killer shot of Jupiter. I love it. It's like a little clump of moons.
You can see the atmospheric distortion now.
Totally.
Because it's getting lower and lower into the atmosphere, the thicker atmosphere.
This is basically through trees right now, so it's done for. Let's head up to Saturn, which is what I was saying.
Ah, comrade.
Aye, comrade, da. Alright, Solar system. Charlie says, see you on the other side, shockers, nice images, thank you. Saturday nights are my favorite nights to see Father Kronos, if he's about. Hey, close out on this shot over here.
Well, he thought the stream was shutting down, so... Charlie, don't go nowheres. We're still here. It's just this program that Chris is using. It shuts off every once in a while.
So damn finicky.
Literally.
Like, it says green, and then it says stream shut down. We're just talking about too much cool shit. That's really what it is.
Yeah, the powers that be don't want to hear us talking about this stuff. They don't want you guys to know that if you're searching for the best truth that humanity has to date, the electric universe is it in science and history. You'll find that this is me personally. I'm 56 years old. I've been through the ringer with the history, the ET question, all of that stuff. And I've searched and searched and searched for meaning. Once I found the electric universe, in one program in particular, I saw symbols of an alien sky, and it all fell together for me. Everything that I'd learned about ancient texts and ancient writings all came to life as soon as I saw that one film. And if you have all that information about ancient history and you want to know the truth, I recommend you watch Symbols of an Alien Sky, and you will understand at that point that everything is based on the electric universe and how electricity is king in this universe, not gravity.
And further, it gives you the tools. So as soon as you understand the fundamentals, or at least even are exposed to the fundamentals of the inherent nature of electricity, you could take away all the videos on YouTube, and you could still exist in a reality and extrapolate your own ideas using concepts from this physics and astronomy and cosmology. It's such a
and they would be more true to the point than stuff that it's based on the mathemagic of Einstein and his thoughts and ideas that are somewhat correct but not complete.
Right. I want to just kick it to the people in the chat. Prow says it's been very interesting listening to the discussion. Appreciate that. I'm glad you found it that. Tom Buddha says your electric universe peeps still believe in a ball Earth. Well, I'll make one comment just about that. I don't know if you do probably follow the Dwayne Kellum stuff where he does the high altitude balloons, and we'll see what he says in his deduction video, but it really seems like that would kind of be your proof. Whether or not space agencies lie or governments don't tell the full truth, that remains, that I think is true. I mean, that definitely occurs, but just not so sure that flat Earth is something that needs to exist necessarily in order to.
Oh yeah, we know that NASA. Sorry, Chris.
Yeah.
We know that NASA does lie, and it does take their data and twist it to their narrative.
To sell.
That's what they do. Sell, to try and, like these videos of these people floating through the cockpit or the cabin of the space station, and you can plainly see wires. That's just a setup for them to be able to talk to kids and make the kids think that they're not doing it for any nefarious purposes, but they do take their data and twist it to their narrative and make it work with their narrative. But we in the electric universe, we take that data and we interpret it the correct way with the electrical forces and in an electric viewpoint and we think we interpret it a lot better, and we show the misconceptions of NASA. And if you go and watch the videos about the comets, especially, they tell you plain and simple that NASA is always shocked and surprised, and they got to change their models.
I mean,
but they don't have to do that in the electric universe. Go ahead.
Yeah, at risk of getting too deep, and Tom is like a regular, and I try not to get into it's not flat, it is flat. It's just one of these things where talking about it in context of electric universe is just that electric universe gives you a tool to extrapolate data. So when you look at planets and you see spheres and rings and toruses and magnetic fields, and then you look at plants and food and neurons and bugs, it all makes sense. And the reason I'm not a flat earther, and you come to my channel and you hang out and people kind of respect what I say to some degree, I don't think it's flat because it's one of those concepts that doesn't actually take you very many places. You really have to, in a way, invent ad hoc theories to make it work. In a way, the same way that we judge quantum mechanics or NASA for making mathemagic ad hoc theorems, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Flat Earth is not it's not a very giving concept. And
well, when you understand the basis of the flat Earth concept, that it was, I mentioned it in text earlier, but maybe you didn't see it, but that was an invention by the Phoenicians, who were the sea peoples, 2,000, 3,000, maybe even as old as 4,000 BC, that had discovered North America. There are studies of ancient copper tools in the old world that contain copper from the New World. Copper from the New World is especially from Michigan, where King Solomon's copper mines were, is unique on the planet. It has silver in it and a high silver content. And this silver content was found in the tools in the old world. In Egypt, these tools were tested. And it's a fact that people will, for their benefit, lie and make up stories to hide stuff from other groups of people. And they would say stuff like, the Earth is flat. If you try to sail out, you'll fall off the edge and you'll never be seen again. Well, the never be seen again part was, if they caught you out on the open seas, they would attack your ship and you'd never be seen again. Right? Well, it's just the Phoenicians spreading that lie. The Greeks, 2000 BC, knew that the world was round by going to the equator in Egypt, placing a stick in the ground, and then traveling 200 miles north of that stick and placing another stick in the ground. And at the same time, at day, they looked at the stick and looked at the shadows, and they determined that there was a shadow 200 miles north, so there has to be curvature.
Let's just make it a little simpler, just because I know also what you're saying. Thank you, and that's all really good stuff. But really, also looking at Saturn in front of us, right? This is circular elliptical formations. The idea of spheres has become very tainted by the culture and the memification of flat Earth, in kind of getting to people where, I've said this a lot on my show, but popular science makes you feel really insignificant and unimportant. And I think when you tie in anger or disenfranchisement with government or NASA or things going poorly in your own life, when you tie that together with concepts about physics and geometry, it seems to really come to a really difficult situation where if you look at the flat earth community, in quotes, you'll see that there's so many varying different ideas about things, which is great. But at the same time, you can, this is something in music, you can practice the wrong thing and never get better. Or you can practice the right thing the right way and get better very quickly. And this is something where you can have a lot of...
Or we can keep asking the wrong questions based on information that's incorrect. Or once we get the right information, we can start formulating questions that are better, that will give us answers to the basic questions that we need answered. Like, where did we come from? How did we become what we are today? Things like that.
Yeah, I want to make sure that I'm not bringing it up because, like, I'm not a person who wants people to think like me. You know, if you want to think in the way you want to think about the world, that's up to you. But I do think that this discussion about the shape of Earth that was just like right at the edge of when people became disenfranchised with the ufology stuff around 2012. Flat Earth came to be because it associated all these different fringe ideas into one, and people like novelty, and people also like wild speculation. And I'm guilty of it too. I love that stuff. I was in every flat Earth room for like 2-3 months in the beginning, like 2014, 2015. I was watching all that stuff. I know all these cats from that back then. And then I realized, I'm like, no, let me get a telescope. When you look at Saturn, which we're looking at right now, or Jupiter, or the Moon, it's instant. There's no more question as to whether things are spherical and things.
Oh, well, hang on 1 second. I have a rebuttal to Tom's comment. No, they didn't phone each other, Tom. They didn't have phones back then. They took the same the measurement at the same time of the day, and then the guy that he hired to go 200 miles north came back to him, and he gave him his date. It's not. There was no phones back then, and you can't ask a silly question like that.
No, don't say that. Like,
that's
not
out of anger.
Well, my idea
it's out of anger. So, I understand, Chris. But I'm just saying, we all have to have thick skins. We all have to live and love one another, and you're entitled to your perceptions about the flat Earth, as much as I'm entitled to my perceptions of the electric universe.
Anyway, I think
so. That's all I'm going to say about that.
No, I appreciate it. I just want to come at it from a more like human interaction situation, right? So like, even if you have a different idea about the shape of the world, the idea of like globe heads or flatards, this whole type of
cone heads. You mean cone heads?
Well, it's a new version of that, but I just want to take this seriously for one moment though, because this is what's sort of, I think, destroying debate and discussion about understanding climate change or whatever. That I don't want to get political about it, but I have my own opinions about it. But these are discussions that can't happen if it's like you're a this and you're a that, and I can't deal with you because you think this. The thing is, if we're going to work together, we have to be able to discuss topics in a more realistic and more logical way. So
right, I agree.
So I really wanted
we all have to allow people to have their perceptions of the world, and not jump on them for their perceptions. We have to allow them to think the way that they want to think, whether it be right or whether it be wrong. In our view, we just shouldn't be really pointing heavily at or attacking or anything like that. It should all be in a good nature.
Let me say what's up to Corey. What's going on, Outdoor Corey? How you doing? He says, first time I've ever seen Chris have someone on the panel. Who else is there? This is Rick SHOCKWAVE, who's been hanging out with us. And the show's like 3.5 hours now. We've been chatting it up and taking all these questions and reading comments. And let's just go through.
And every once in a while, a musical interlude.
Very few tonight, but
yeah.
I feel like this format really, plus it's your time, and I don't get to do this very often. I tend to play a lot of music, so let's see. I wanted to just read shit. I just want to read stuff in the chat from Tom. Says, read my comment, don't do what you just did. I just want to mention just about the flat earth stuff. I wasn't really trying to get granular about particular experiments or theories or what someone said versus what someone did. It was really just a much higher level psychological reading on being able to talk to one another, whoever it may be, at whatever level, in whatever country, at whatever age, without immediately saying, oh, I heard you think about it, the world like this, therefore I can't hear anything you have to say after that. It's a lot of work to do that, and I don't think people talk about it enough.
Yeah, and it creates a lot of division and anger, and we don't need that in the world. We need love and caring and compassion. That's why if everybody has a thick skin and, comments and
it's tough to ask people to just have a thick skin, I think.
Well, no, I know it's not. I'm not asking people to have it. I'm just saying people should consider growing one. not in a bad way. They should consider the thought of making things affect them less than they do. That's all.
It depends. I've heard, because it's about positive reinforcement, right? A lot of people don't have that type of upbringing or family environment or friend environment where they get positive reinforcement, and therefore they feel very threatened by their own ideas. And I see it all over the place. I felt like that for a long time without studying a lot of things, and even now, I tend to drift off in thought because I'm like, it's almost overwhelming. You have to keep a lot of things at the forefront of your mind and link them and talk about them in an articulate way. So I understand why it's difficult and why it's emotional, but I think that kind of work is what will get us to a place where we do have better comprehension of science and space.
And we can have better conversations, and everybody can have their points of views and not be called crazy or, you're nuts, or just caring, loving, and compassion need to be in the forefront of everything. And yes, Outdoor Corey, I'm Canadian, from Toronto,
All right, y'all, I'm getting a little neck pinch, and I gotta go get some rest for work tomorrow. But it's been really awesome. Let's wind it down here for the next few minutes. And just, Rick, throw me some final thoughts if you'd like, and we'll do thanks and shoutouts.
Well, my final thoughts are that the electric universe is, again, the best science, the best history that we can come up with today.
Okay.
And if you want to know the truth, go there to the Thunderbolts Project.
And as we close, we got views of Saturn. Really looking good tonight. We saw some of the moon earlier. We saw some Jupiter and Europa popping into view from a far orbit away from us. A really interesting shot. Appreciate everybody's comments and chat tonight, and also the comments and likes on the Saturn wave video, Saturn refraction video. And the comments are really great. I appreciate everybody thinking about it in context and providing some great feedback. Check out the Sapphire update, Thunderbolts project, description of this video again. And if you want to support the channel, go to TakeBackSpace.bandcamp. The link is in the description. Pick up a tune or two, or just listen and share it. And that's it. I'll try and catch up with y'all tomorrow for some more moonage. Otherwise, the day after. Hopefully the storm doesn't get us. Great fun tonight.
And thanks for having me, Chris.
Hell yeah. I'll shout out the peeps in the chat. Corey, I know you came late, but good to see you, bruh. Tom, take care. Always respectful chat. Tammy, I hope your man gets well real soon. And
yes, much love and some healing energy your way to your
Space Family's rootin'. Duplicate, see you in the comments. Hell yeah, keep rocking that electric view. Light Moon, Kimberly Schick, thanks for all the nice comments. Cognitive Dissonance. Okay, let's see. Starlight Spectrum. And Vicky, always great to have you. Prow. Just scrolling. I'm writing some new tunes coming up soon for the full moon. I'll switch over to the 11, we'll play some live guitar. Charlie Silverman, thanks again. And I think that's a Waffle Iron Steakhouse. Sorry I missed you. That's funny. Great name. Now I'm hungry. Michael Wise, take it easy. Alright, that's all I got.
Oh, cognitive dissonance. Do you know about our Discord server for the Electric View? You're welcome to come there and talk with us. We're in fact there now. Me and Chris on TakeBackSpace. We're broadcasting through the Electric View Discord. So if you'd like, I'll post up the address, and you'll have to go to discordapp.com and register an account before you can join the Electric View Discord, before the link will work. If you'd like, I'll put that up for you and we can talk.
Okay, and then last link, that's the Sapphire update from Thunderbolt's project. Go leave them a like, share it with your friends who are interested in science, pretty much anybody. It's really, really high quality, and we want to just come to expect that level from Electric Universe and Thunderbolts in general, because that's what's going to get the word out. Thanks again, everybody. Let's play it out here. Thanks, Rick. Good night. I'll catch you on the flip.
Roger, Roger. Have a good night, everyone. Take care.